JJ, the CPA here. Are we able to hear us A-OK? We've got some headphones in. Are you able to hear? I wonder if we're still connected. How would we know?
I connected us. Remember, I played music. I'm just trying to find the video. I don't show us live yet. There we are.
You want to play the sound real quick? And you want to go listen and see if it sounds good? Go listen.
Yeah.
JJ CPA here. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for joining us here on Saturday. Really appreciate it. We are We are going to try this.
Okay, they're saying no sound.
You think it doesn't work?
Must not be, but.
Hold on just a second. You just turn it. What are we trying to do?
Go to settings.
Settings. Okay, so that's okay. Now can you hear us? We tried to get all fancy and put in headphones, but I guess that ain't working. All right, we can hear us now. I bet if you're close enough now, you can hear us. All right, hey, thanks for that. The good news is that this show's just free. So thanks for bearing with us. We're like on Saturday Night Live. It's like we're doing a show out of our basement, basically. But thank you for joining us here on Saturday. That is the 11th. We are excited for all of the interest and the questions. Go ahead, if you want to list your questions, you can. Today we're going to try and really keep an eye out for those that are our fellow Uber and Lyft drivers. They're in that industry, and then all those that are in the salon and hair and nail industries that are definitely affected by this.
And we'll go ahead and test it out. Can you guys hear me better this way?
I love it, Mike P. Everybody hear Amanda A-OK, I'm assuming, because she's right next to it, okay? Because we had gotten some feedback or heard, you know, that you couldn't hear Amanda as well, so we're going to go this route with the phone. Hopefully it's going to work maybe better than before. So, but hey, I wanted to just say thank you for joining us, and we've had a few people that have emailed us and we're getting caught up, but Bill and Jared, Terry, Rachel, Christy, Kitty, Nancy, thank you for the emails. Thank you for the support. Yes, we are going to get some t-shirts out to you next week. I think we're going to have to order some more because that puts us down, I think, to only 2 left. So thank you. And then I wanted to make sure that you all know I've been running with a crew. We call ourselves JX4, starting with the one and only out of New York, and that is my great friend Justin McAuliffe, CPA, CPA JMac, as well as Juan Garcia. He is the CPA marketer out of Austin, Texas, and the Amanda. So the 4 of us, we've been doing this already. We've got like 46 episodes. So the reason I'm telling you about it is that we have a new episode that comes out every Sunday night. And what we do is we have a round table. It's kind of an around-the-clock deal, similar to what you might see on various talk shows, Sunday morning talk shows, or ESPN, where we kind of kick around stuff that's going on, sometimes related to accounting, sometimes just related to business. But the 4 of us, I do really want to make sure that you are checking out all of them, especially on Instagram for Justin McAuliffe. He goes by CPA JMac. He's the founder of Justin McAuliffe, or McAuliffe CPA Enterprises, PC. Don't forget the PC. His website is cpa.enterprises. That's how big time he is, just cpa.enterprises. And then Juan is with Gold Lake Media. Amanda and I connected with Juan when we first were getting on social media. And so he's been a great friend. Also, a shout out to Jose Zavala out of Houston. He was one of the originals of JX4, but he has been busy doing other stuff and studying for the exam. We also want to give a shout out to Russell McDonald, who's part of our crew. He is out of California. Russell, buckle up, because with our reality show, I expect I'll be seeing you probably in the next 30 to 45 days, and we're going to need you with us with where we're going, because we're coming out to California. More to come on that. J-Mac is ready anytime. J-Mac's ready to rock. So Justin McAuliffe, we also do business together in the sense that he and I have a, for lack of a better word, like a partnership in some of the services that we provide. So you'll be hearing more about Justin, especially as we get into as we move forward and we have some nitty gritty things related to accounting. But I also want you all, and we're going to mention them a few other times, but Seth Denson is a good friend of ours, and he's great to have in your wheelhouse to watch on YouTube and to watch him on social media, because he is truly a healthcare industry expert. But one of the things that's interesting, the show I was on with him, on his show live, not this recent Friday, but the Friday before, but he is bringing information about what we're all probably asking for. You know, when we watch the news, and we're going to get to questions in about 5 minutes. When we watch the news, right, all of us, we understand about the masks, and it's all similar stories, right? But what Seth is doing is on his show, which you need to go check it out, his YouTube channel's Seth Denson. Denson with a D as in damn awesome, right? But anyways, with Seth, check out his YouTube channel. Look at those shows, because he brings a doctor on, and they ask questions like, is it okay to eat food as I'm going through the drive-thru? I also want you to check out a great friend of mine, Annie Nerney. Nerney is not right.
Andy Neary.
Neary. And the only reason I say that, and I'm going to say it that way, I had a good friend forever and ever. We lost contact with each other, and I came across Andy on LinkedIn long ago, and I messaged him. I said, "Oh my, do you know me? I think I know you, because I don't know anybody else that had this name." He's like, "Well, it's not Annie. It's not Nerney. It's Neary." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, you're right, because I knew a Nerney." Anyways, former MLB pitcher with the Brewers, and he is a business coach. And one of the things I've been talking about in some of my videos is that I think a lot of businesses, we're going to need more of that, especially coming out of this. I gave a quote to, I think it was Forbes magazine, and they were talking about the depression of small business owners. You know, is there going to be some depression? And my take on it was postpartum depression, and you know, having somebody like Andy. So check out his YouTube channel as well, which is Andrew Neary, and we'll put links when we're done to both those YouTube channels. But it's a mix of kind of where you're at. If you're on Instagram, probably anywhere, but if you're on Instagram, you've got to follow CPA JMac. CPA JMac. You think you've never met a CPA quite like me? You've never met a CPA quite like JMac. Great friend, makes it fun. This would be JMac right here, basically. I mean, like we all probably know who this is, but if they make a movie of Justin McAuliffe, they're gonna pick Leonardo to play him for starters, because great role there. And then CPA JMac also has a book out. And then I do want to just plug, okay? The Amanda has a book that came out a few weeks ago. It's called Be a Potato. And what's interesting here is that it's not your average cookbook, mainly because it's not a cookbook, right? And
Want to tell them what I do.
and you know, the bottom line is that Be a Potato. It's building a brand on social media in 90 days. It's based on a true story, by the way. It says it right there, based on a true story. But the Amanda is a social media manager, works with some high profile people that I'm not going to tell you who they are. I might be one of them, but I'm not high profile. But
Oh, yes, you are.
But anyway, she had this wonderful post about being a potato. And she said, and then we'll get into some questions. What she said was, in one of her posts, this is just how it started out. It's like the potato. It's vodka, it's potato chips, it's French fries. It's like the other vegetables, they're not even trying. She got like 20,000 views on LinkedIn over it. And so she has built this niche of kind of having this little sense of, a nice sense of business humor. But then in that same post, talking about being a potato, she talks about how we should be potatoes in the sense of not just one thing, we're multiple things. So let's be vodka, French fries, and potato chips. Anyways, she went from 88 to thousands and thousands and thousands of followers in under 90 days in LinkedIn for just being a little bit different. So she's my soulmate, so I gotta plug her, right? Be a Potato, Amanda Brewer. You'll find it on Amazon.com, and when we're done, we'll put a link to that. We've got a ton of questions, and so we are gonna dive in. I think what we wanna try and do is we're gonna hit questions that we have been receiving by email. We were kind of doing both things last week, and so what we've got is we do have some emails that were sent to kind of the email address you probably found online, but we now have an email. So if you have questions, you can email them to jj@jjthecpahelp.com. And if you email us now, we may not be able to get to your question. We've got quite a few in the queue. So we're going to start with the emails that we received at the original email that was just like, it's like my business email, but to make sure we can focus in on you all. So thank you so much for tuning in. I'd love it if you'd subscribe. Amanda's over there telling me, tell everybody that they need to subscribe. So thanks for tuning in. We are going to talk about PPP. We're going to talk about the credits. I've been researching the law. We've got some questions about the employee retention credit. And there's discussion of, if somebody takes a loan, are they able to get the credit? My take on it is the answer is no during the time that you're using PPP money. There's maybe a little bit of controversy over this in the sense of, well, does it mean though that you've precluded yourself from it no matter what? Meaning if you take a few bucks on some PPP money, you're not going to be able to use this credit. Maybe that's the case. I'm researching the law. I'm going to do some additional videos on that. But as we kick in, what's our first question? Who's it from?
Well, I want to make sure that you guys are giving a thumbs up. Make sure that you are sharing this video, and you can share it on Facebook, share it on any of your social media profiles. That would be awesome. And also, I wanted to, CR, we just saw your comment. Hey, JJ, do you take care of us underrepresented in cannabis business? Maybe travel to Alaska and help me fix my business. And that is actually a place that JJ has talked about that he really wants to go to. So CR, we may just take you up on that.
Well, it's probably a good spot. We're doing a reality show. We've already had 9, I think going on 10 applications. We just put it out there yesterday. We've been talking about it for a while, but it's JJ the CPA Here, be a YouTube reality show. But the reality show being, we want some companies across the nation that I can come and help. No cost, no obligations in the sense of I'm not going to become their CPA. I'm going to come in and we're going to basically do a workup. You can go to my jjthecpahelp.com/show with a little more details on that. But maybe you need to take a look at that. And we've got an application on there you could fill out. It might be fun to go up to Alaska. I think we've got a couple of contenders already. We talked about it earlier. We have a pre-reality show episode number 1 that we posted a couple hours ago talking about this.
Also, one last shout out, and then we're going to get into questions. And I want to shout out Shandy Chu, who is actually a resident here in Edmond, Oklahoma, where we live. And her family own Thai Cha Cafe. And They're actually a little local business that had never heard of JJ the CPA before here in our town, and ran across one of his PPP videos on YouTube and sent this wonderful email, and actually wants to deliver dinner to his family. So
Yeah.
how awesome is that?
Us.
To us.
To us.
To us.
So we're going to hit a few, and then we're going to look, because one of the things we're wanting to do special for this live is those that are in the Uber and Lyft industry. So all I ask is that if you're throwing a question up there, that you just, if you would subscribe at least. If you're throwing a question up there, that's all we're getting out of it basically at this point, other than we're enjoying helping everybody. But we do want to also address anybody that has questions specifically that are in the hair, nail, what am I saying?
The salon industry.
Yeah, salon industry. And part of that is we have some wonderful clients. I'm sure they wouldn't mind me saying, Mint Nails in Edmond. They have been friends and clients since my son was like 2 years old. And anyways, just dear friends of me and my family and clients. And I put together some videos specific to them that you'll find. It'll say specifically Mint in one of the pictures and in one of the descriptions. So we're going to answer a couple of emails, and then we do want to jump over, and any questions that are coming to us.
Monitoring it.
And
Haven't got him.
I saw one though.
Oh,
I
did
did
you?
see
Okay.
one, yes.
All right, our first question is from Andrea Nicola Fredley.
You don't have to talk so loud.
I don't have to talk so loud, but I'm used to yelling across the room. Sorry. Okay. Do you recommend putting the loan funds in a new and separate checking account for tracking? This way, when a sole proprietor writes a check to themselves for their payroll, there is a clear path. Any checks written for overhead, like web hosting, or debits made, there is a clean path. I'm nervous that the bank or the feds can change their mind on what the definition is of payroll for its self-employed folks.
Yeah, great question, and I really appreciate Andrea for letting us know that she's probably dealing with this on the sole proprietor and thinking that way. So the bank where I got my PPP, and I did get it approved, I've got the papers to sign. I think I'm going to get the funds on Monday, so I'm glad for that. But they are just automatically setting up a separate account and putting the funds into that. The bank is that where you're getting this PPP money is going to be the one that you in essence visit with when it's all said and done, and you're going to need to prove to them what you used and was it forgivable. And when you're then talking about having a separate account, yes, it's a very easy way to be able to track that. But I did talk the logistics with this banker. If you do have a separate account, you might have payroll coming from it. Do you need to get checks and all that? So what I'm doing and what I'm recommending my clients is, if you want to set up the separate account, just that when it's time to pay that specific bill, then move the money from that account to your operating account. So I don't think you need to go buy checks for it necessarily, or tell your payroll company, pull the money from these funds. I think that could get a little messy, but at the same time, having it separated out. I do really feel strongly that in the 8-week period that you are in the forgiveness zone, that it is good to really separate out those funds, track it separately. You're being given those monies only for payroll, rent, utilities, health insurance, employer match, SUTA taxes. And if you are using it for other purposes, and if you look at the law, it indicates that you are in essence breaking the law. So from my perspective, when you're done with the 8 weeks, it's kind of like you've gotten back from the movies when your parents or your grandparents gave you $20 when you headed towards the movies. And what do I mean by that? Grandparents are like, hey, heading to the movies. I tell you what, reach out, hand you $20, like, hey, have fun, go to the movies, have fun, get yourself some popcorn, and then, just bring me the change when you're done, okay? So what do? You go to the movies, and then you come back. So if you go home and you say, well, hey, Granddad, thanks for the 20, but I decided just to go buy some socks instead, or I decided I just was going to go get lunch instead. Granddad's probably going to be nice to you, because you're like, well, that's not what I gave you $20 for, though. Okay, I gave you $20 to go to the movies for some red vines and some popcorn, okay? So the point is that you need that. And then whatever change you have left, then you owe it back, yes.
I'm gonna, since we're answering questions live today from our Uber and Lyft and, salon people, I'm gonna switch up and go back and forth because we're gonna miss this whole
Yeah,
half hour.
So just to be clear, we're going to emails, but if we have these the whole time, we'll just be going to this because this is just a special for them. So go right to the top. If you've emailed, know this, we're gonna answer the questions, but today we set aside for these industries.
Arshad Hussan, what can I do to expedite the PPP? I have provided bank with payroll and Form 91.
941. Yeah, so from the perspective is just following up with the banker. There's really nothing that can be done when you're talking about the PPP. My understanding from banks is that, it's anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes to put the information in, all the questions that it asks for, which I think is a little disappointing. I think there really could be a way that a lot of this information could be verified just through channels that are already set up, meaning I know when we e-file tax returns, it's like that, just based on a little bit of information that the Social Security Administration verifies the identity before it then goes to the IRS. So I know that's part of this. But, from my perspective, I feel like we need to give the bank a little bit of a break in time because they've had a backlog. But I will say they should be catching up by now. I know that they've had some curveballs thrown to them. I know they're going to start dealing with the Social Security, or I should say the self-employment coming up, which is going to be another set, I think, of rules that maybe they're going to give us because we certainly haven't gotten a lot of guidelines on that. So follow up with the bank. And really, if it's been a couple of days, if you hadn't heard from them by Wednesday, get an email in the queue over the weekend and just say, hey, know you're busy. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a great holiday. And, just checking in on the status.
Okay, somebody, I just wanted to get back to it. North Gay Picker just wanted to let everyone know, but FYI, she got denied for the PPP loan for showing a loss on her taxes.
Yeah, so, and let's be clear. It feels like a denial. It may have been called a denial. It's just that you didn't qualify. And so what I've been real careful with is when people indicate, hey, I got denied, it's more, well, you actually just didn't qualify, because what I want everybody to hear is you can't get denied. Period. You may not qualify, but having a loss as a sole proprietor will disqualify you because it's based on the net income. So by having a loss, you have no net income that then can be taken. So Amanda's over here scurrying back and forth.
Yes, and I was just, people were asking what the email was, so I put it in the comments.
JJ@thecpahelp.com.
Hal Song, got the PPP payment. I have 2 companies and applied for the other advance for both companies. What should I do now?
Okay, so when you say advance and you say PPP, I want to make sure we're all talking about the exact same thing here. So the PPP, if you're on, the PPP would be what you get from the bank. An advance is what you get from SBA. And so just to clarify, yes, you get each based on the company, separate EINs. And then if you're talking about the EIDL, so that's what you get at the SBA website, that's what the advance is, okay? And if you have 2 different companies, you apply for both. But when you get the EIDL, it's not that it's forgivable, it's just you don't have to pay it back. Forgivable with the PPP is you meet certain qualifications that are set out, and then you are able to have that loan forgiven.
All right, hey JJ, I got a note this is from Metal Bum.
Oh, hey, what's up, Metal Bum?
Hey JJ, I got a note from a local bank. It had SBA number and all of that. Is this the final thing I need to do for the PPP application?
So if you got a confirmation number from the bank, that's kind of neat that they've sent it to you. Most banks are not doing that, at least maybe they're not doing it in Oklahoma. But if a number did come, then typically what that means is that the SBA should mean that it approved it, because it's either you're in or you're out. It doesn't go to the SBA and then the SBA decide if they're doing anything. The banks may pretend that that's how it's done. That is not the case. The only way that the SBA may decide that you're not going to be qualified is if the background, information knows that you are, you're a felon, or there's somebody else that's applied under the same ID number or something to that effect. But the law states that the loan proceeds have been approved. The SBA is making no approval of this. They're relying on the banks to do what is required. And then, of course, when the bank's putting in all that information, so that's really just to say, Meadowbum, I think you're golden if you've got a number, okay, assuming it's not a confirmation like your bank's giving you a confirmation number that they received your stuff. But if it's an SBA number, I think your money's coming next week.
This is from Michael with Horizon Pet Supply. We, meaning my wife and I, own 2 pet store supplies in California and are still open for business. We have not terminated any employees yet. Can we apply for the PPP funding without shutting down the business and laying off the employees?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly what the PPP is all about. I am working with this camera here. Okay, but this is the whole purpose of the PPP, which is so you can keep your doors open. It's not contingent on you having a loss. It's not contingent on that your gross sales are down. What it's contingent on is that you have employees. So if you have employees, this is to give you money to keep paying them. You don't have to have your doors closed. They don't have to be at home. And as long as you're paying them, you're going to get forgiven. And then you're getting money for rent and utilities, because it's basically taking the last 12 months of your payroll, the health insurance, the business pays, the employer retirement match, as well as your state unemployment tax. Wrap that up, divide by 12 times 2.5, and that is going to be, in essence, the max loan that you're able to get. There's a lot of caveats if you do last 12 months or calendar year. Check out my other videos and playlists as it relates to that. But the short answer is get on it ASAP. This is exactly designed for you, and God bless you for being able to keep your doors open, and more importantly, being able to pay your employees. That's tough. So get after it, like ASAP, like right now. Like you need to go to my website, jjthecpahelp.com. You don't put in any email. There's nothing on here that you're going to tell me who you are. But you go to the PPP page. You get that application. There's a couple of videos on there. I got a checklist of the documents that you need. I've got worksheets that you can complete depending on if you go the last 12 months or calendar year 2019, and you need to get after it. So by midnight tonight, you need to have all of your paperwork done, because what you're behind the 8 ball on right now is getting the bank to now get you processed. You're going to want to go to the bank that you are banking at currently, and you want to walk in with everything there. But I'm not kidding. It should not turn, whether you celebrate Easter or not, but the Easter Bunny comes at 12:01 a.m. wherever you are. I think you said in California. By 12:01 a.m. you need to have it all done. Period. The end. You can't overthink it. It's simple. Go to the website and get those documents. And I mean, I'm not kidding around. The Easter Bunny ain't coming to your house if you don't have your PPP stuff ready to rock, so that Monday morning you are getting that. Nothing else matters. Nothing else matters. Get your PPP money now. They're going to run out probably by Friday. Get in there.
All right, this is from Aaron Rickheim. If there are shareholders of an S Corp that are paid slightly over $100,000, would it be safer to have their salary reduced to $100,000 for 8 weeks to ensure PPP is fully forgiven, or does that really matter?
It really doesn't matter. I mean, in the sense of just preserving dollars, you may want to pay yourself less, but it's certainly not a requirement. Just know this, that if you kept the payroll the same, only 100 divided by 12 for the 2 months would be that qualifies. And in theory, you want to make sure that, if you're getting PPP money, it's only based on the 100 grand. So just knowing that, it might be paying towards your payroll, but technically it's only really supposed to pay towards the 100. But, at the end of the day, this is how it works. I mean, you have your payroll, You go into the bank, you say, hey, here's all my stuff, and they're gonna look and they're gonna go, okay, well, for these employees, you know, we can only count this much, you would be included in that. If you wanna make it super easy, then yeah, just lower the salary down during that period, and then you just don't have any concerns. Then it's just, boom, here's the payroll, it all should count.
Just since we have like doubled in people that are on, make sure that you are hitting the thumbs up button. Make sure that you are subscribing if you have not already done so. We are going through the questions. We are going through emails as well as live chat back and forth. This episode is really for the Lyft drivers and the Uber drivers and the salon owners. So we will be going back through all of those items to try to get everybody taken care of today.
And then we are live tomorrow at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, and that'll be dedicated to the real estate industry. Know this, one of the reasons we wanted to kind of focus in on these industries that we're talking about is they're both sole proprietors. So if you're a sole proprietor and you have a Schedule C, everything you're pretty much going to be hearing about is going to be related to that, because most of the individuals in these sectors that we're talking about this afternoon is that. And then if you're in this sector, just know this, that if you are asking the question, we may just say, hey, if you know, you'll need to go back and just play it. So if you're coming on and you're asking a question, we'll get to it, but know that if we had already discussed it, we may recognize it and let you know to go watch a different video. But we're glad to see as many people on as we are. I thought we might have, 50, 60 people on a Saturday.
Awesome.
So we really appreciate you all tuning in.
And one other question, I'll put it in the chat again. The email is jj@jjthecpahelp.com. But I'm going to also put that in comments again as well. And it will be in the description of the video as well. All right, on to our next question. Our next question is from Joyce Franklin.
Joyce.
What about process servers that are 1099?
So if you're receiving a 1099, then you are, there it is, jj@jjthecpahelp.com. jj@jjthecpahelp.com is the email. Know this, you can send the emails with the response that we're having. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Gina. Thank you, Jeff. If you're receiving a 1099, okay, you, for starters, are an independent contractor. If you have expenses and you're taking those on Schedule C on your individual return, you now have become a sole proprietor. So if you're taking the expenses, you're going to base this on the net. There's no advantage versus one or the other in the sense of it either is or it isn't. You either are an independent contractor or you aren't. So independent contractor is somebody that just, in essence, they're doing work, they're getting 1099s. So the PPP is just based on that because that's all they have. They don't have any expenses that they're taking. If you're a sole proprietor, you may be getting 1099s, you may not, you may get cash, you may get Square, you may get all kinds of other avenues of getting money. But then when you go and report it on your tax return, if you're putting it on a Schedule C, which is smart for tax purposes because you're reducing down that income by expenses. So bottom line is that you do qualify. You want to keep your 1099s, present them to the bank. If you are doing Schedule C, present the Schedule C, and what it's going to be based on is line 31. And if you are a sole proprietor, also look at Schedule 1. I've got a video about this. And on Schedule 1, line 15 and 16, is where there is retirement plus health benefits that you can be including with the number of your net income on Schedule C to then determine your max loan. So definitely qualify. And here's the thing, if those of you that haven't applied yet and you haven't put together your documents, I will say this, if you don't have it done by the end of Sunday night and you're not knocking on a door on Monday, you're a week from now going to be really kicking yourself. So I understand that we're busy with life. I understand we're busy with our business and our families. So guess what? You're probably not doing anything related to family or business from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. You got 5 hours in the middle of the night. You got zero excuses. This money will run out, period, the end, and you need it. It's available for you. If not, then what will be available to you is unemployment. I'll circle back the person that wasn't able to get a PPP because they had a loss. Well, then you qualify for federal unemployment benefits, which right now is through the state, supposedly. So long story short, get that PPP, because here's how it's designed. You get your PPP. When that runs out, you get your EIDL, and when that runs out, then you go get your unemployment benefits.
And Brian LaSalle from Seconk Little League. JJ, I'm a CPA. I've been watching you on cranking out returns.
Love it.
Thanks for all you do. PPP denied yesterday. They said my business partner default on a student loan.
Oh, man. Well, that sucks. You know, I don't know. I mean, I don't know your structure. You know, if you're an S corp, you probably already thought of this. I mean, then you're stuck in that. Man, that's
pretty messed up.
Man, I'm sorry about that. That is frustrating, and it's probably too late to not be owners with them anymore. I say that facetiously. And then remember, that's a 20% or more that it would apply to, which I'm sure you already took into account. So, well, hey, thanks for watching, and sorry that happened.
All right, this is from Hope Scott. It's an email. PPP forgiveness for self-employed. Can you clarify what you understand to be the forgiveness amount for self-employed people?
Yeah, and you know what? We will answer this question just this one time, Amanda, because we are getting this question a lot. And the only reason I say that is we have this much guidance, as in zero, as it relates to the self-employed. So Amanda's putting in her application for PPP. She's self-employed. She files a Schedule C. And so we've already got everything queued up. The bank's ready to submit. They're just simply waiting for the SBA to allow a submission to occur under a Social Security number. Long story short, when I was talking with the bank and several others, there's still no guidance on what it is that you do to prove your forgiveness, other than 25% of it being able to be used for utilities and rent and interest. The interesting part is this: when you're talking about PPP forgiveness, you can use 100% of it, in essence, for payroll, okay? But you can't use more than 25% of it for these other expenses. And the reason that is that they want this to go towards payroll. And so the reason I say that with self-employed individuals is that the way that it's based on your loan is your net. So it's almost like, is it just an automatic forgiven for a self-employed? Meaning, hey, you qualified, here's what it is, because I don't know how you quote unquote pay yourself from a company that's not separate from yourself. So, well, hey, if Nancy and Kitty are listening, hopefully you're having a great Saturday.
All right, our next question is from Cheryl Glancy. I've been listening to you, and I was happy to hear that you said that I could even apply if you opened January 1st this year. I had vacation rentals last year in Branson, but because of congestive heart failure, I needed to be closer to where I live, which is a tourist town, so I sold the condos. I bought property here and was scheduled to open in February when this hit. No vacationers, no tourists at all. I'm still paying the property mortgage, utilities, taxes, and insurance, but I have zero chance income to show. My local bank said that the loan is with told me I wasn't eligible. What do you suggest I should do? I filed the EIDL and PPP loan on March 30 online, but of course I haven't heard back from them.
Yeah, so wow, sounds like a lot of circumstances there. I hope you're doing well. I'm glad to see that you just kept that American, the American entrepreneurial spirit alive. And when you weren't able to go right, you found a way to go left. And yes, due to the timing, boy, what a terrible time for any new business, any business for sure. But for the new businesses, it does definitely put you behind the 8 ball because you don't have anything to show for your business. So if you went into business January 1st, you're able to use, according to the law, January 1st through February 29th, but you would need to have net income because in essence, you would take that net income for those 2 months divided by 2 to come up with your monthly amount. Same thing with the payroll. Basically, the requirement is, were you in business at February 15th? Yes. Okay, then you qualify initially, but you still have to have that net income and or the payroll. So yes, you did the right thing. EIDL is your option. You're not alone that no one has gotten back to you. But yesterday, we started to hear that EIDL money was hitting. I've heard that there are individuals or businesses that are getting $3,280 on one, $3,800 on another. But then I did see comments that there were two different people that got $10,000, and basically it's meant to be $10K. The senators, there was a group of U.S. senators that really got after the SBA. Somehow someone at the SBA started to, I guess, make some decisions to allocate funds differently and under different qualifications. That was not the case otherwise. So the EIDL, we do have a minor understanding that there might have been some applications lost. All I would say on that is that if money's coming out now and you haven't heard boo and you haven't gotten any money, then probably by the time you hit Monday or Tuesday, you may want to just apply again. If this has been at least 2 weeks that you haven't heard anything, and I mean like you never got a confirmation email, you never heard a thing. If you got a confirmation email, you're just going to need to wait.
This is from Vida Gomez. What happens if you split your refund in 2 or 3 different accounts?
Okay, so on the refund, if you're talking about, on a regular tax return and you get a refund and you tell the IRS you want it in more than one account, and now you're applying that to the economic impact, most likely, I would assume that they are going to, whatever instructions that computer has, if 50% goes to this bank and 50% goes to this bank, that when that money comes, that they will split it that way. I have no basis for knowing that. They've not indicated it anywhere, but the system inside the IRS that's being used to pay out these economic impact checks are going to just follow what is on file. And then if you're talking about PPP money, there's no bearing, no big deal if you put it in multiple accounts, because what it comes to at the end is how did you spend it? And we are hitting.
We are hitting live.
Live.
That was a live question.
Okay, live. That's in the industries that we're talking about.
Yes.
Okay.
Jean McIntyre.
Jean.
JJ, I sent you the changed response towards my application April 10th. You mentioned on your live Friday to go to your page, JJ the CPA Help. I looked over your checklist for single members LLC, and I sent over those documents to Chase. It doesn't appear the banks have a real grasp on how to handle single member LLCs with no employees other than myself. What do you recommend my next step be?
Can we find the email from? Or is that? Oh, that's the email there. Did they send another email?
Yeah.
Just search it.
All right. Next question.
Here, I can search
This
it.
is from Hatim.
Let me search it.
I worked gigs and didn't file tax for 2018 and 2019. Am I eligible?
Well, you won't be eligible for the economic impact payment because you haven't filed. And you're gonna find it. So you need to go ahead and just file. If you're not required to file for 2018 or 19 because your income's too low, which I don't know that that's what you're indicating, but at the IRS website, they have now, starting last night, it's called non-filers, enter payment info here. So if you haven't filed a return in 18 and 19 because you didn't need to, you didn't qualify to, then you go to the website here on the IRS. You explain why you're not filing a return, basically, and then you give them the information to get your impact. You won't be able to qualify for PPP because it is going to be based on your tax return. They won't base it on 18. And then the EIDL, you need to have had business activity as well to be able to qualify in your business that you're trying to get money for. So really what it comes down to is you just get yourself up to compliance, meaning go ahead and get filed. Just get the things filed, and you're putting yourself in a position where you'd be able to qualify for these things.
There's the email from
Okay,
Jean.
so this is the email
Remember
that they
that's-
got from Chase.
Yeah, that.
Oh, okay, this is what you talked about yesterday. Thank you for your application, blah, 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 blah. Okay, company, this is a great demand for our credit for paychecks protection, failure to provide. Okay, so yeah, Gene, you probably got, just a straight up, I mean, obviously you know this, just a straight up, email that's just like, hey, send this back to everybody. And when I'm looking here, let's see, that email came yesterday. If you got this email before the 10th, it may just be that they weren't set up for the sole proprietor, because that's what we're talking about here, right? Yeah, single member LLC. So you might just try again on Monday. With Chase, if you have a tax ID number and you have a business account, you've met their one hurdle there. I'm sure that's just an automatic reply. So feed some information to them, feed them something. If there's a belly to be fed, some portal to put information into, then do that. Are they saying they sent a third email?
No, I'm trying to get back to.
Oh, okay. So anyways, pull together what else that you gave, or send another copy, or send a letter that says, as a sole proprietor, you requested this, sole proprietor doesn't have, and list all those 940, 941s. I don't have a separate business return because I'm a sole proprietor, and I report this on Schedule C, attaches my Schedule C. Feed the animal, okay? And then maybe you depending, I don't know of any yet, because they just started doing it, that have gotten anything successfully submitted to the SBA for the self-employed sole proprietor single member LLC. So maybe go to sba.gov and look at the PPP info, and you'll find a list of lenders by putting in your zip code, and maybe you'll be able to find somebody there. But I just keep your application on file. Let the process go. Keep getting them info. Maybe you talk to a bank. Don't just assume that the wonderful person answering that says, yeah, we can take care of you, that they're going to be able to take care of you. You can start the process with a different bank. I wouldn't give them an application completed, because you only want to really have one application going, but at least give them the info and explain it. Trying to get it at Chase. Here's my circumstances. They don't seem to get it. Here's what I'm providing. So at the end of the day, I say, keep forging ahead.
Just came in, Rosal LLC. Hello, JJ. I got the PPP today.
Nice.
The banker
Congrats.
told me that they were able to speed the process because I had all the information ready, and with the bow on a top, as you
bow on
top, as you told us. Thank you for all your
Yay.
advice.
Yay. All right. Well, congratulations. I love it. That's hope for everybody that's listening, in the sense that there's banks out there, and part of the list and the information that I'm providing is not only what's required, but it's like, hey, if the banks are wanting this, then give it to them, because the banks, it's taking 30 minutes to 45 minutes, but if they're going through everything and they're missing something, like anything, they probably have to then put it aside and just go to the next one. So I'm right. Well, congratulations. You're one of the first in the country that's getting those dollars, much deserved, and hopefully it's going to bring a sigh of relief this weekend.
Michael Page, what happens if I get PPP and end up not losing money this year? I'm a trucker, sole proprietor, to try to counteract the financial losses. I'm working almost every day, but I was off for 17 weeks last year.
Well, I'm sorry to hear you were off last year that long. Probably a story with that, right? But here's the good news. You don't have to have a loss. You don't have to have a dip in your income. You don't have to have any changes to your economic position. What it's doing is saying, hey, based on the past, here's your money. And then if you use it for the purposes of which it is created for, then you will not have to pay this back. For sole proprietors, for you as a good God-fearing truck driver, and if you're not good God-fearing truck driver because that makes you mad because I called you a good God-fearing truck driver, then you can be a bullets and, whatever, badass truck driver. Nonetheless, you're out there working hard. So this is not meant for you to lose money. It's to help in this gap of time. And we don't have a lot of guidance yet on what is going to qualify as the sole proprietor spending it for it to qualify, but it's got to be an easy hurdle. And I'll tell you this, the bank that Amanda's getting her PPP with, they said, it's actually going to be easier to do self-employed because we get a Schedule C, we're done, okay? So if you're dealing with a bank that knows what they're doing, it's a Schedule C, line 31. If you have employer, which would be you, putting into retirement, or paying for health insurance. It's on Schedule 1. The bank's like, what else do I need? I got a Schedule C, I got a Schedule 1, boom, it's in. Where with employers, you know, you got the 941s, you have various things to look at and back out and add in and bop, 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 bop. So that's a banker that's saying, hey, sole proprietor should actually be easier because it's one document. If you're an independent contractor, should be easier, which means you're not doing Schedule C. Here's my 1099s, done, divided by 12 times 2.5. Here you go, put it in, be done. So long story short, I wish that they would have done the opposite. I wish that sole proprietors and the small business owners would have either been able to go first, or there would have just been a separate program or a separate application, whatever you want to call it, for those organizations. And I wish that for sole proprietors, independent contractors, it was just simply going to the SBA website. It's not the case. So long story short, it's money out there to be had. It's money there to help you, but you don't have to be losing money to then get it forgiven.
This is from Brooke Witt. Question for a spa client. Payroll hours were 3/1 until the state ordered all spas, salons, etc. closed on 3/13. Payroll date was 3/25. Eligible for the 7,200 credit.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And you can do it one of two ways. You know, there are some out there that they haven't paid in their payroll tax for March because it's not due till April 15th. From the standpoint of if you're a small enough employer, so to speak, you're not paying as much taxes in. So you can immediately reduce down what it is that you need to pay in. If you've already paid in your employer taxes, then absolutely crank out that $7,200 on the employer retention credit, basically up to $10,000 of compensation per employee. You get 50% of that. So I doubt that, and I'm saying this because no one in my personal business was able to exceed 10 grand in compensation from the 13th through the 31st. But here's my point. What they want you to do is for any credits that you're wanting a refund on 7,200, fill out Form 7,200 and only include the time from first quarter, or only include the credit, I should say, for first quarter. The form was finalized before they, in essence, finalized the fact that you can go back to March 13th and March 13th and after include those wages. So you're going to see nowhere on there a first quarter to check to indicate the credits in terms of where they came from. So the instructions indicate, check the box for second quarter, put it on line 1 and fax that puppy in. Okay, it doesn't say puppy in the instructions. I added that. But you fax that in. And so I'm just saying this, if you haven't paid in the payroll taxes, anybody that's qualifying for it, then reduce down dollar for dollar what you're going to pay in for payroll taxes to realize that a credit immediately. If you've already paid in the employer taxes, the payroll taxes we're talking here, right? 941 taxes, then you file that 7,200, it's 50%. And then, you know, I am gonna take this minute to talk about it because, you know, we have to be careful about what we literally are reading. We have to go, are we being literal here? Okay? Or are we going to look at this? Because I'll tell you this, if you go to the IRS website, let me read this to you, what the IRS says on the employer retention credit. And there's a couple of spots where there is, but the one that I'm reading, says IRS employee retention credit available for many businesses financially impacted by COVID-19. So I had somebody in my office call me and they're like, "Hey JJ, you know, I don't want to doubt you, but it seems like the way this is written, every single solitary employer in the United States of America is able to get a tax credit for what they paid their employees from the 13th through the 31st. I said, well, that can't be the case. They said, well, let's read it. So I'm going to read it to you because it's not the case. But here's what it says. So if we're going to be literal, right, we can't be we read a sentence and then go make a whole career off one sentence of what we read on the IRS website. Because the first thing to know is that what's on the IRS website has no authority okay? And it's not an opinion. The IRS says it everywhere. It's everywhere. You can't rely on this. This is no authority in any way, shape, or form. What you rely on is what's in the actual tax law, the regulations, the revenue rulings, the instructions. These are none of those. You have some wonderful people at the IRS that are working their tails off. They've had a committee they've put together, they're putting together, and they're getting information out there. It has zero authority. But listen to this and see what conclusion you would draw based on what I'm getting ready to tell you. All right, we got 381 people on. I love it.
Sure
Thank you so
guys
much.
Are hitting those thumbs up. I see them growing and growing. We
Yeah,
appreciate
thank you
it,
so much.
And hit the subscribe button.
Yeah, please subscribe. Please subscribe. Especially if you're going to submit a question, we'd love it if you would love it if you'd subscribe. All right, so see what conclusion you draw on this from the IRS website about the employee retention credit. It says, how do I know which wages qualify? It says qualifying wages are based on the average number of business employees in 2019. Okay, so we're looking at 19. Employers with less than 100 employees. If the employer had 100 or fewer employees on average in 2019, the credit is based on wages paid to all employees, regardless if they worked or not. If the employees work full-time and were paid full-time work, the employer still receives the credit, okay? So now if we're gonna go make an entire career off that sentence, what would be the conclusion that you would draw? Just like the staff that called me, and they're like, JJ, listen, I mean, it says right here in black and white, if the employer has 100 or few employees on an average in 19, the credit is based on wages paid to all employees, regardless if they worked or not, okay? There's no way that that's what the IRS is indicating. Whoa, JJ. I'm telling you right now, I don't even know where you're going with this because IRS said right there, I get the credit. I get that credit. It said, doesn't matter if they worked or not. Doesn't matter if they worked or not, okay? So if you're coming up on an intersection, okay, and you see a stop sign, how long do you sit there? Think about it. I'm at the stop sign. I mean, you're at the stop sign, okay? Let's not be the person that's like, well, I mean, it doesn't tell me I can go. Can I go now? I mean, like, how long, you're supposed to know the law that goes along with stopping at a stop sign, right? What is it, 3 seconds? And then you have the right of way, and if somebody's pulled over here and then there and this and that, and if they pulled first, right? There's all these rules, right? So if you're just looking here and you're like, well, it says stop, then you're never gonna get to your destination. You're gonna die an old person at the corner of 150th and Western at the stop sign because it said stop, so I can't keep going. I mean, I don't know what else to do. So the reason I'm being a little funny about this is that people are also saying it on the other side, okay? There's somewhere else in here that it says, if you take the PPP loan, you don't get the employee retention credit. Now, I am looking at the law. I'm looking at it from a different perspective, okay? To see, I'm really challenging my opinion on that. I'm challenging it, and I'll reveal tomorrow what I think my answer is. But here's what you need to know. If I just go to another part of the IRS website, okay, which is the frequently asked questions of the employee retention credit under the CARES Act, it says, what are qualified wages? Whoa, wait a second, what? What? There's another section that talks about what are qualified wages? The first thing I want to remember is that this is all crap, okay? Now, don't get me wrong. What the IRS says goes, right? Absolutely. But not per website. Because I'm telling you right now, if I'm in an audit and I go, well, listen, I have a screenshot of the website and it said that I could, the agent's going to go like, excuse me? I mean, like, we're going to look at the rules. We're going to look at the regulations. We're going to look at the regs. That's what we're going to rely this on. We're going to look at the instructions, which are based on that, not what's on there. But listen to this. What are qualified wages? This is from the IRS's website, Frequently asked questions, FAQ on the employee retention credit, okay? Qualified wages are wages, blah, 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 okay? But it says if the eligible employer averaged more than 100 full-time blah, 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 employees, blah, 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 blah. But it says right here, paid to an employee for time that an employee is not providing services. So then you read that and you're like, well, wait a second. Okay, so if they're not providing services, then I'm able to get this credit. But then you look and you're like, well, hang on a second. This says if the eligible averaged more than 100 full-time, then it's only saying that if they did not provide services. And then you're like, well, wait a second. What is this really getting at? Well, if you look and then in the law and you look deeper, in my opinion, as it relates to this is not, did you pay an employee? You get the credit, period, okay? Okay, so it first talks about you have to be impacted, you have to be closed down or shut down. Well, if your employees were at work, okay, and they're working, I'm not interpreting anywhere in here that you get that credit. I'm still digging on it. I'm still digging in on this one because we're talking like 72 hours that this whole thing came out about going back to March 13th, even though this thing came out on March 27th. So I am looking, I appreciate the questions, I appreciate the emails, I appreciate the challenge on it. We need to get our hands around it, but all I'm trying to say is that when you're reading here and it says, if you're 100 or less, well, in the same freaking sentence, the IRS says, well, if it's fewer than, and then it says in the same sentence, well, if it's 100 or less than. The IRS is getting out the information as fast as they can. We're absorbing it. That's a really long way of saying, yes, take the credits. Take the credits. It's dollars that you spent. Get the employer retention credit.
All right, excuse me, a couple of shout outs. PG, I'm a tax preparer in Virginia, working with many self-employed clients. So many questions from them I've been able to answer without hesitation because of your recent videos. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And good luck with the rest of our tax season.
A. Prandle, I tune in every day. Thanks for all the wonderful information.
Thank you.
I've been sharing your videos on my law firm page.
Oh, wow.
I appreciate
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, Frank Shiro, any word on EIDL being capped at 10,000 grant, $15,000 loan? If so, that's a huge hit for the restaurant business. How does a restaurant start up and buy product?
Yeah, so the EIDL, if you have 10 employees or more, you should still get the 10K. It's a max 10K advance. After the advance, you can get then the SBA Express loan, but anything above the 10K is a true loan. There's no opportunity for forgiveness, and there's no opportunity to like not pay it back. So if you're a restaurant, and I'm sure you already did, you know, it's based on your employees, what was ran through on the W-2, W-3, in essence, your summary. So if you're in a circumstance where you've exhausted your funds that you can get on the PPP, then you're able to get the EIDL, and you're absolutely right. This is where there's a little bit of a, you know, I don't even want to say disconnect, but there's a lot of other businesses, restaurant industries particularly, having a ton of, here, you have to come around and show everybody. You gonna show them?
For real?
Yeah, you have to show them. We only have one.
I only have one, and it's mine.
The guy that made our t-shirts made one hat.
And it's all mine.
You have to go down so that they can see that. Let's see. Can you see it? Here we go. Here we go. JJ the CPA hat.
It's mine. It's limited edition.
The trucker hat. I love it.
Okay.
So anyways, what were we talking about?
Restaurant industry.
Yeah, so in the restaurant industry, you have a ton of food costs, right? Like, boom, you're open, you gotta be ready to go. And a lot of the organizations that you're buying food from, a lot of them, you know, it's cash on, you know, COD, right? You gotta pay on delivery. And then there are a lot of other businesses that have other overhead costs. And so I know that if you're an entrepreneur, you are, we're never looking for handouts, and we're never looking for anything that we're getting for nothing. The dollars that are coming from the PPP and the EIDL, you know, are for nothing. I mean, meaning they're getting there to help us. It's there to help the employees. But in some ways, that's where there's a minor gap, is that it is helping the employees. It is helping the landlords, if you really think about this. But there's not really much unless the employee of the business is also the owner. There's really not a lot here that's helping the small business owner. And I mean to help them personally, right? So let's think about a business. You get an S Corp, it pays wages, but the owner didn't pay themselves wages. And I understand there's the school of thought amongst CPAs and EAs and tax professionals that, you know, it's like, well, that's what they get, right? Because if you have an S Corp, you better be paying yourself wages. Well, that's what you get. You know, I've heard that comment. But that S Corp owner is getting squat in the sense that they didn't pay themselves a wage. Their net income's not subject to self-employment tax. So the landlord is going to get some money from this PPP because the business is going to get some money to pay rent. The employees are going to get some money, right? The electric company and the gas company and the telephone company and the internet company are going to get paid. But there's not anything, there's no real provision in here for the actual owners. Now, if you're self-employed, you get that. But for S Corp owners, you're not considered self-employed. And a lot of partnerships, you're not considered self-employed, depending on how you've reported it in the past. So I feel you, I do. And that's where I think some businesses are having to make some tough decisions, which is they get the PPP money, but they've laid everybody off. The employees are going to get unemployment. So they do have money at the end of the weeks. At the end of the 8 weeks, it's not going to get forgiven. It's 1% money, but you do have to pay it back. So yeah, a lot of tough decisions. And in the restaurant industry, because of the heavy immediate costs to just run the business, is definitely an extra hurdle.
This one is from Carly M. Booth renter cosmetologist. Bought the salon I work at October 2019.
Congratulations.
Filed 2019 S Corp shows loss. I have 9 booth renters. 2019 independent contractor taxes not done. Still have to merge the two. Help.
Yeah, so you know what? Good job getting the S Corp return done. It's a loss. You know, like most salon owners, you probably don't have employees that you're paying out of that, or if you do, it's probably, you know, your receptionist, or, you know, maybe your shampooist or something to that effect. But on the income that you earned before you were the salon owner, that's most likely been reported on Schedule C, would continue to be reported on Schedule C. So ASAP, get that Schedule C completed tonight, okay? I'm not an advocate of doing it yourself, ever, okay? It'd be the same as someone going, hey, just cut your hair, you know, you'll be good, right? And you'd never say it. You'd never tell anybody to do that, okay? But you would tell a client of yours, right? You would tell a client of yours that they are on a raft in the middle of the ocean, that the only way they were gonna get to shore is if they gave their bangs a trim. Okay, and you try and talk it through with them, and you'd be like, listen, it doesn't matter what your bangs look like, but you're gonna have to cut your bangs to get to shore. Okay, you wouldn't say as a hairstylist, listen, you can't cut your bangs, so I guess you're gonna be on that raft forever out in the ocean, best of luck to you. So what I'm trying to tell you is, I'm recommending to you something I've never recommended in 27 years, which is cut your own bangs, right? Okay, cut your own bangs. Because you probably are not going to find somebody by Monday to do what it is I'm getting ready to tell you to do. Look at what was done for 18. Go to irs.gov, find Schedule C, and grab that Schedule C. And you know, you can complete it even on there. There's a PDF. But here's the thing, on the Schedule C, okay, you're not preparing your tax return, okay? So I'm not telling you to go give yourself a perm. I'm not telling yourself to go ahead and color your hair. I'm saying you're gonna trim your bangs, which is a pretty major step here, okay? But at the same time, I'm not telling you to do everything here, right? So let me make it clear. I'm not telling you you have to do your whole return, but what the banks want is a Schedule C. Why? Because here's what banks know. Well, Frank, I need a Schedule C. Where's the Schedule C? They gotta have a Schedule C. They gotta have it. You get them something else, and they're like, well, where's it say Schedule C on it? So you gotta give them a Schedule C. Here's what Schedule C is. You guys ready for this? Okay, I'm gonna pull you behind the curtain, right? Wizard of Oz time here. We're up in Kansas, otherwise known as Oklahoma City. Okay, and all of a sudden I'm gonna pull behind the curtain here. Okay, you ready? Okay, welcome. When you're doing a Schedule C, okay, and I don't give away any secrets here for me and my fellow CPA, EA tax professionals that are doing tax returns, okay? It's written in English for starters, just real quick, just so you know. Schedule C is written in English. I know a lot of my clients, they look at it and they're just like, what? I don't even know what this is. What? What is that? I don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't understand it, right? I get it. It'd be the same as if you handed a bottle of hair coloring to one of your customers and you're like, hey, so take that one and mix them together and then let it sit for 15 and then put it under the dryer for 45 and then come back over here, but we're gonna blah, blah, blah. They're gonna be like, what? So I'm just saying, take a deep breath, and all of you out there that are needing a Schedule C, just take a deep breath, because what I'm gonna tell you is when you just then focus in for a minute, and I'm having fun, obviously, so hopefully everybody knows I'm having fun here. And you look at it, you're like, wow, it says this stuff in English. And it says gross receipts. And then, okay, I see where, okay, there we go, office supplies and supplies there and that. And before you know it, the document that you've been given to your, tax preparer probably has most of it in there, right? Your income and your expenses. You're translating it onto the Schedule C, and you're giving the Schedule C into the bank. Now, you want it to be as close as possible, if not exactly what you're gonna file with the IRS. But this isn't the time to go, well, gosh, I don't know. I mean, do I include this or do I include that? Because here's the thing. You're in the middle of the ocean, you're on a raft, and you have no lifelines, right? You have 0 lifelines going on right now. There's no one to call. All you got is a Schedule C. You're gonna have to figure it out. Because here's what happens is you have somebody that they're looking at it and they get too concerned. They're not sure if this is right or not sure if that's right. So let me give you a little bit of security, all of those that you're doing it. You could literally do this. You could just put the gross income on there and go, here you go. And if that's what you file with if that's what you file with the IRS, you're golden. So if you really, really, really are concerned about it, you put your gross income, you hand it in. Now that's what you're gonna file with the IRS, by golly. But you don't even have to put the expenses. You're not required to take expenses on a tax return. You are not required, okay? What you're required to do is report your income. So there's Schedule C, you put your income. Now, I already know this because they've commented on some of my videos like, whoa, 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 hold up there, JJ. You gotta think about the taxes now. Well, absolutely. Let's think about this, right? If you don't take expenses, what'd you do? Well, your taxes went up, right? Of course, your taxes went up. So if you're gonna show income of 100 grand and you don't take any expenses, you're gonna get a PPP based on 100 grand, but by golly, you're gonna pay tax on 100 grand. So let me pull it right back to you, okay? Here's what you would know. Is booth rent an expense? Well, heck yeah, that's an expense. Just the same as if you asked one of your customers, does scissors cut hair? Yes, okay, great. So we know booth rent is as simple as knowing that scissors cuts hair. Booth rent, that's an expense. You're buying any product, that's an expense. Any of, cosmetology, dues, that's an expense. Any kind of, product that you're buying that you're putting in the hair, any type of product that you're selling. If you're doing nails, right? All the things that you have to buy every single time, you have to dig in on somebody's, nails or feet or whatever, right? All the materials and the stuff that you throw away, all those costs, yes, okay? Any expense that you're incurring, you get to write off, so you don't have to think too hard about it from the standpoint of, it's this, okay? I've got many videos on this going back 2 years. You have basically 2 requirements to meet to know if something's a tax deductible expense, and it's 2 alone. And I'll tell you this right now, there's nothing in there that says anything other than what's your intent for the expense. That's the first requirement. It has to be for business. The second is it ordinary and necessary for your business? Period. That's it. It doesn't say teddy bears don't count. It doesn't say if you drive a motorcycle, it could never count. It doesn't say that, what you give in dog food doesn't count. Because if you have a security dog and 10 of them and you're a security company, you can write off dog food. If you're a dance company, you can write off pink ballet shoes. If you're a motorcycle company, you can write off stuff related to motorcycles. You see what I'm saying? But is it ordinary and necessary? So can a dentist write off a motorcycle? Well, how's that ordinary and necessary to the business? Well, maybe it's a corporate motorcycle. Let me pull it all the way back for you. Let me pull it all the way back for you to give you some confidence. You know what is related to your business, okay? And then I'll finish it by saying, just go with the smirk test, okay? So you go with the smirk test. If you're having to fill out this Schedule C because you don't want your business to drown by Monday and there's no one here to help you and you are on a raft in the middle of the ocean with a pair of scissors and you've just heard an echo from your hairdresser, I know you're one, that says, cut your bangs, then you're gonna have to freaking cut your bangs. And what you're gonna do is, when you're filling that out, if you do this for 1 second, this is how you know it's not a tax deduction. Are you ready? Hey, do you think I can write off? That's not a tax deduction. If you have to ask somebody, hey, do you think that's a write-off? Typically, it's not, okay? It's the smirk test, right? Because if you were sitting there and someone said to you as a hairstylist or someone that does, you know, a colorist or someone that does nails, you know, spa, any of that kind of stuff, if someone came to you and they're like, hey, am I able to write off, you know, I'm gonna buy some hair product to put in my client's hair when I'm done doing it. You wouldn't for a second go, hey, Jesse, are we able to write off hair product? You would know it in 2 seconds. You would be like, well, of course, you're spending that for your business. I'm trying to give you all some encouragement to say, you know what's a business expense. Now, why do you hire someone like JJ or the Wonder Professionals that you hire? Is that in normal circumstances, when you're not on a raft in the middle of the ocean, you're not turning around and seeing your house on fire, okay? You want someone like us to go, well, let me ask you this real quick though, where do you store your supplies? Do you have a vehicle? Do you ever go to a customer? Have you ever traveled to a convention, right? You want us to ask you those questions so that we can help reduce down the tax, okay? Well, right now, reducing down the tax is also reducing down the PPP money. So not in a million years am I saying defraud the system. I'm not saying that you write off things that you should. I'm not saying that you should write off things that you shouldn't. What I'm trying to encourage everybody on is this. It is this weekend that you are able to now actually put your documents together and Monday morning be able to apply as a sole proprietor, self-employed, or independent contractor, okay? The first day that they would take these was Friday. Know this. There are many, many, many individuals like you, okay, that haven't put in applications yet. And there's gonna be many, many people like you that by Wednesday, they're gonna be like, wow, I need to get my stuff in. And guess what you would have done? You would have followed the advice of JJ the CPA. You would have gone to jjthecpahelp.com. You're not going out tonight. Your friends aren't coming over. You're canceling the movie night. You don't need to Netflix and chill. You're leaving the drinks up because you're not gonna do anything else you're doing nothing else until you go to my website, which is for free. You don't give me your information. There's no gimmicks here. I don't need your email. You tell me nothing. There's no cost, risk. I don't know who you are. I don't need to know who you are. But you're gonna go to jjthecpahelp.com. You're gonna get that application. I've got a list of documents that you need if you're self-employed. You go and you prepare those things. I've got the schedule in there because you need to be first in line, okay? You can't be the person that thinks you're gonna be on time on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. You will be left out in the cold, potentially. Because here's what we're gonna wake up with. Right at the end of Friday, what we heard is somewhere around maybe 125 billion has been accounted for, so to speak, of the 349 billion, okay? But there are huge amounts that have been put in throughout the week that haven't closed yet, okay? If you're a business putting in for a $10 million PPP, because that's the maximum, 10 million, okay? That doesn't happen in 2 seconds. There's more documentation that goes into it. So now all of a sudden we're gonna hit Monday or Tuesday and all of a sudden we're gonna probably be like, whoa, we're at 250 billion, 275 billion. And now you're gonna be running and here's what's gonna happen. You're gonna get yourself to the bank and you're gonna be like, hey, let me in. And they're like, well, what are you doing? We're online. And you're gonna be like, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. And they'll be like, sorry, you got to go online. You're like, what? I can't hear you. Okay. See, we can't even go to the bank right now. You're going to have to call. You're going to have to get through. How many other people are calling? Okay. So you need to get after it now. There's no more delay. I don't care that you haven't seen your best friend and you're feeling lonely. I don't care. What you're going to do is get yourself feeling very excited and happy and fulfilled and overjoyed, because you're going to go to jjthecpahelp.com and you're going to fill out this information. It's going to be wonderful. You're going to have a blast. It's going to be so much fun, and you're going to be relieved at the end. And then guess what? When you message us a week from now and you're like, whew, I got my PPP money, you're going to be glad that on Saturday night you decided to do something different, and it was getting this stuff done. And I'll tell you this right now, if you really get after it, boom. And there's no reason you can't have it done 60 minutes, okay? Just can't, right? We're talking about, you're given, the equivalent of what you're doing would be like a beard trim. Let's go.
Okay, this one's gonna go out to Tammy and to Labita and to Tracy and to Jared. All of you guys pay attention. Anybody in here who is an independent contractor truck driver.
Oh,
no
gotcha.
other employees other than
Yep.
themselves.
Yep.
Only mortgage. Can PPP be used to pay that? We have like 6 questions.
Yeah. So I'm gonna put a ruling out there on it right now, unless we get further information. If you're talking about the interest on your vehicle in terms of your truck, the answer is yes. Okay. So it won't cover the payment, so to speak, but if you have a loan on your truck or any business loan, okay, or an asset that you're using for business, you do get to use the interest as a portion of what's being forgiven, okay? If you are self-employed, what I'm really hoping here is that when you get that PPP money, okay, that you put yourself in a position where possibly all of that money, okay, is just gonna be a forgiven amount, because as a sole proprietor, right, we don't pay ourselves wages, right? We don't have a separate bank account. We're not required to, that is, right? Being a sole proprietor, being a self-employed, being an independent contractor, you're all one. So if you're now talking about the mortgage on your home, the answer is going to be no on that. The only way I think a mortgage on a home would be somehow included is a fractional amount, and it would only be to the extent of the home office deduction, but that's nowhere. And more, the reason I even bring that up with you is that would be a sliver. I mean, it'd be a couple bucks, literally. I don't care what your mortgage is, how much your interest is. It might lead to, $100 of your interest might be a write-off if you're able to have a home office expense that you're able to write off. But on your vehicle, I'm gonna say heck yeah, because it does clearly state, it says mortgage interest, but then when you keep reading, it's saying in essence, interest on business loans.
Seth Denson is on. He says
Seth,
straight talk from JJ.
There you go, Seth. We were talking about you at the beginning. Thanks for being on. By the way, everybody, I talked about at the beginning. If you weren't here in the beginning, go to Seth Denson's YouTube channel. That's Denson as in damn awesome, as in a D. And he has a really unusual show, in my opinion. Nothing like you're seeing on YouTube probably anywhere, because he is bringing in experts, most notably a doctor, and he's done this several times, and he's bringing in doctors to talk about what's going on with the coronavirus, asking the questions that it seems like all of us are asking, but for whatever reason, it's not being addressed in the media. And I understand the media is keeping wonderful tabs on how many people have passed away and how many masks there are and aren't, and ventilators, and wanting to give sound bites to the different politicians that beat up on the other politicians, when really what we want to know is this, okay? If I'm going through the drive-through and I'm getting food from the drive-through, am I at risk for getting the coronavirus? And that's a question that I asked on Seth's show a couple of weeks ago when he had the doctor on, and we got an answer. So I'm not going to tell you the answer because you need to go watch it. They're asking questions like, okay, if I have a fever but I don't have this, what should I do? They're asking questions that are practical questions that I'm seeing nowhere. So you need to check out his show Also, he was kind enough to have me on the show. He called me the tax doctor. So that wasn't, it was on the 3rd of April. So go to Seth Denson with a D as in damn good. What's another D word? Besides, we're not using the D word that everybody says, which is dog, right? Unless we're going like, Seth's my dog. Seth Denson's my dog. Seth, thanks for tuning in. Everybody needs to go and check out Seth Denson's page because it's real practical stuff. Healthcare expert. Not to mention he's a gorgeous man. And I'm here with Amanda. Okay, Amanda's my gal here, but he's a gorgeous man. He's very good looking, so he's easy on the eyes, as people have said. And he's on Fox News all the time. He's on the Daily Ledger with Graham Ledger on One American News, which is a great show, great guy. He's on Cheddar News. He's on Newsmax. I mean, you name it, he is there. I mean, he is the man. So anyways, and you know, I first saw Seth, I will tell you this. I looked at him and I was like, man, that guy, he's kind of gangster. You know, he's kind of a player. And then you learn that he's in the health industry and he helps people and he's very gracious with his time.
All right, this one is coming from Araya.
Araya?
Araya.
All right, so Araya is my wonderful, great friend right from here from Oklahoma. I'm telling you this right now. We're getting ready to hear a question from, like, it's not even kidding around. It's Nick Rhodes. If Duran Duran ever needs somebody to replace Nick, Araya is right there. Not only is he as cool and looks the part, so to speak, because it's just who he is. But he's a great friend. He's in a great band that's called Murder by Love. I've actually gone to see him several times. I'm promoting an event that they are going to be playing at. Why? Because they're awesome and they're dear friends. But we've got Mikey and Steven and Andrew and Araya that are in this spectacular band. So the reason I'm telling you this is go on Facebook and look up Murder by Love. They've got an EP that's going to be coming out soon on iTunes. And then you need to check out Rio Flamingo on Instagram. So this is like the next, you pick it, designer of clothing. You're going to want to have something that's going to have this flamingo on it because of his line of clothing here. So Araya, tell us what the question, and you know why Araya's doing this? I'll tell you this right now. Araya and I have been texting all week, and I keep saying, hey brother, I will give you a call later tonight. And then it's like, I don't. And then the next, I'm like, oh shoot, I will give you a call when the show's over. So this is how much time I'm spending on this, that I'm ignoring my friends, that the only way my friends are coming to talk to me is they're going on live on YouTube. Araya, how are you? What's up? Tell me what your question is.
Is there anything about my situation about starting a business and just now this stuff happens with COVID that's hindering it? What do I do about trying for bank loans? Don't know if this falls underneath this. Maybe you guys could address it.
Yeah, you know what, and that's a great question because there's a lot of individuals, you know, Araya in his situation, he's got some things he's getting ready to launch and has been working on since Christmas, and you know, I've been working with him on that or talking through with him, so to speak, not to mention even just some of the things that I was mentioning to you getting ready to launch in the music industry as well as in the fashion industry. And the thing is that it is that we're finding that we're a little bit left out in the cold when it comes to the PPP. And the reason for this is that new businesses, yes, do qualify, but if they don't have wages yet, there's not going to be anything that they're able to get for the PPP. The EIDL is a possibility, but if you don't mind me sharing, Araya, you know, the business is so new, right? It's here's the business, it's ready to go, but I haven't conducted any business yet. Because I've got everything lined up and then it's ready to go. We're ready to launch, but it hasn't happened yet. The EIDL requires there to have been income. It had to have been a business in play, but also having income. And so if it doesn't have yet income, then you're not able to get any benefit from that EIDL, which is at the SBA.gov. So even if you've been in business, if you don't have any sales yet, is kind of the point there, you wouldn't qualify for the EIDL. Now, the other thing is that if you, though, have hit a dead end with PPP, with the EIDL, the federal unemployment, usually to qualify at the state level, you have, you know, kind of this much of a doorway that you can go through, okay? So if I were to take, let's just say for 1 minute, I've got a fishing line right here, and I've got a spool right here, a fishing line, okay? And I've got a weight at the end of it, okay? You ready for this? So this is how wide of a doorway we have for you to qualify for federal unemployment benefits. Is I'm gonna take this, and now I'm gonna cast this. You ready? I'm casting it. It's still flying through the air. Boom, okay? That's how wide the doorway is to qualify for federal unemployment benefits. And so if you've started something new, which means you've also probably left what you were doing before, then it's federal unemployment benefits that are going to be your friend. But I will tell you, from my great friend Araya, being in Oklahoma with me as of Friday, I will not get upset about this because I know that everybody's trying to do their best. But Oklahoma has yet to, last I knew, adopt the federal unemployment benefits. And the reason I know that is I had 3 different clients that are in circumstances that they are approved for federal unemployment benefits, meaning they meet the qualifications, okay? But if you're in a position where you meet those qualifications, but your state hasn't yet adopted that, then you're out of luck so far. And I did find if you go to jjthecpahelp.com and say what?
The trolls are out
Trolls
big
are out.
time.
Well, of course they are. It's Saturday. That's it. But the other thing is, this is only our 6th day going live, and you know, CPA Strength, our great friend Jonathan from Florida, who's probably the most famous CPA on YouTube, has great information about accounting. You know, he told me, so I got to know him. He's gracious enough. We connected probably well over a year ago. Great guy. But anyways, he said, you know, JJ, I'm going to tell you this. You know, when you start having trolls, be excited. Be very, very excited, because that means that you're making noise, you're making splash, people are paying attention, and there's people out there that, like, that's just kind of what they do. Like, when they find somebody, it's like fun for them. And the reason it's fun for them is that they have found somebody that is on their way or is providing a lot of good information, and they like to have that attention. So anyway, so we're, at least for now, we're excited.
Yeah.
We're excited. But if you go to jjthecpahelp.com, and I've got a page that's called Unemployment, on there I have this link. And again, this is a free website. There's 0 gimmicks to this thing. But if you click on careeronestop.org, and if you don't want to go to my website, it's careeronestop.org. You see right there in green, it says, hey, file for unemployment. So I'm clicking on it now. I file for unemployment. I go down, and I don't know why it's not bigger. You kind of have to look, but there's a spot that you put in your state from a drop-down menu. And the reason I'm doing the exercise, I'm going to see if anything's different there today for Oklahoma. My understanding is, I believe California is up to speed. There's a few other states that are up to speed. I don't see anything new, but what we're being told, when I say we, Department of Labor, that's who put this website together, is the Department of Labor, is you go through the state. Well, when the CARES Act came out, it was supposed to be, from what I understood, you go into the IRS website, and they were the ones that were going to be administering it. Because of what I also understand is, if you qualify for $1, you qualify for $600 a week in federal unemployment. So my fishing line and my weight that are way over there, that didn't catch a fish because I didn't put any bait or a hook on it, but nonetheless, it is way over there. The gap to be able to get federal unemployment is wide. So I know for a fact, Araya never thought he'd probably find himself in a situation like many of us that we would ever think in a million years we would be filing for unemployment. It's not a pride issue. It's more of a, well, I mean, I just have always worked. I've always had a job. I've always found something to do. If I got to do this, I'll do it. If I got to do that, I'll do it. Doesn't at all mean that if you've collected unemployment in the past that you're somehow done something that's not good. All I'm saying is there's a ton of us out there, Araya being one of them, that never thought in a bazillion years they'd be filing for unemployment. But what I'm telling you is, if you're a new business, if you're a business with a loss, if you're a business without employees, okay, and you don't have a lot of net income, then that federal unemployment is going to be where you want to turn next. And the only place that I know of is careeronestop.org that has a link that says go here, and it takes you to a link at your state, and then hopefully your state is up to par to be able to provide these benefits. And I will tell you this, I'm going to start getting really upset with the government if by Wednesday we don't have federal unemployment rolled out, because it's really a ridiculous thing. It should be an automatic. There's no reason on federal unemployment that it couldn't have just been literally overnight. You just tell the governments in the state, change your standards, here it is, and when they apply, here's the dollar amount, period, the end, we'll send you the money. That's it. It could be a conversation in 5 minutes that's recorded and sent to every state unemployment. Now, I know I'm oversimplifying it, but I'm blaming the feds. I'm not blaming the states. The states are doing everything they possibly can. The good God-fearing workers at our state unemployment taxes are overworked right now, okay? They've been put more rules and regulations on top of them. And it is the federal government that has said, hey, we're gonna lean on you, and that's okay. Everybody does their part in this time of crisis. But the Fed said, hey, we're gonna lean on you a little bit. You need to disperse this. But by the way, we don't have the money yet. We're not gonna give it to you just yet. And so that's why I think probably a state like Oklahoma doesn't have it rolled in, because they must not have the information and or the money yet to do it. And we're talking going on now 2 weeks since the CARES Act. And when you go to 2 weeks, and we're now going into mid-April, rent was due 11 days ago, okay? If I got a last paycheck coming on, the 15th on Wednesday, I'm out of money by Friday, okay? That's most of us. So these federal unemployment benefits better kick in. It's ridiculous. I'm glad that everybody up in Washington, who I love and are friends of mine, good job, love it. Beautiful job, beautiful, okay? But if no one is going to open this up to then say, here is the money, it's done nothing. PPP just came out yesterday. EIDL just hitting money yesterday. Stimulus checks coming out yesterday. Great, thank you. Where's the unemployment benefits? All right, thanks, Araya.
First out, I want to let everybody know, since we're at 430 people watching right now.
Thank you,
Make sure that you are giving us a thumbs up. Make sure that you are subscribing to the channel. Esther, and want to give a big shout out to you, because she says, hi JJ the CPA. I went to 2 popular Uber and Lyft YouTube sites to let them know they need to send their drivers to JJ the CPA.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And I did do the other night a couple of special videos just for Uber and Lyft drivers. I did research. I looked at how Uber and Lyft drivers, they get a 1099K, they get a 1099 miscellaneous. They also then get a tax statement from Lyft and from Uber. Some of you do both. What is key there is you want to look at your tax statement, because on the tax statement that you're getting from them, it is going to indicate, in essence, the fees that were deducted to then arrive at what you actually got paid. Think of it this way. You get your W-2, right? Anybody here who's had a job going back to when they had, when you're a kiddo? You get wages, okay? And you look at box 1, you're like, I didn't get paid that. I mean, this says I got paid 36 grand. I did not get paid 36 grand. I get 1,500 a month. There's no way. Well, that's because it shows you got paid 36 grand, but out of that 36 grand, there were all these taxes withheld. Well, with Uber and Lyft, they're not withholding taxes per se, unless they're local taxes, but what they're withholding is their fees, credit card fees, all the different, association dues or anything, sign-up fees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the number one issue that Uber and Lyft drivers or taxi drivers are hit with is they're paying tax on what's reported on that 1099K without taking any kind of deduction for the amount that the companies subtracted from your pay before giving you money, right? You already know this, right? Somebody comes and they get a ride with you, right? They come in and, they sit in the back and, usually with my Lyft, Uber drivers, I put in there, I want a cool ride, low conversation. right? So you're there, you're anticipating, somebody gets in, hopefully they weren't stuck up in their room, said they were downstairs and they weren't, you had to wait 10 extra minutes, but you're sitting there, okay? You take them wherever they need to go, right? No money exchanges hands, it's all done on the app, okay? And then me as the customer, it's like, oh, here's the dollar amount, you know, add a tip, yes, no, boom. So me as the customer, like, oh, okay, you know, $15 to get to, you know, XYZ. So, you know, for like that, there's no way you got $15. There's no way. But your 1099K is going to show $15 on it if you only have that one fare all year. Your 1099K will show $15. Now, if there's some other fee you got, okay, because they talk about fees other than ride fees, right? So I'm assuming maybe the tip. Now you're going to get a 1099 miscellaneous. So if I left you, you know, if the ride was $15 and I left you $5, okay, you're potentially getting a 1099K for $15 and you're getting a 1099 miscellaneous for $5, okay? $20 got paid by the customer in that. You're getting a 1099 miscellaneous, a 1099K that equals $20. So you have to look at the tax statement that Uber and Lyft has sent you so that you know what deductions that you need to take. Are we at an hour?
We're at 100 minutes.
100 minutes, so.
Over an hour.
Yeah, so hang on. So we're just gonna say when we talk to our Uber, we say right at around 95 minutes.
Okay.
All I'm gonna say though is that then make sure you're taking your mileage, okay? Or you're taking actual expenses on your vehicle as additional deductions, as well as the waters that you buy, air freshener, the mounts. Check out my video on that. It's very specific. I put the logos in there. I was unauthorized in doing that, but you will see in the picture of the thumbnail, the Uber and the Lyft logo. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Our next question is from Leica A. I own a skincare spa, opened 2019 as LLC. I'm working myself, using Square Processing, and all I got is a 1099K. Haven't filed taxes yet. My CPA is really slow and a little unhelpful. How can I get PPP?
Yeah. Well, congratulations to you. That's a big event, and that's exciting. And using Square is a great option. The 1099K is beautiful because, you know, compared to those that were in your industry, go back, you know, even 10 years, right? It was probably mostly going to be cash or check. Maybe there'd be credit card, but back in the day, there wasn't even anything even sent to you. So getting a 1099K is like getting a golden ticket. Okay, we're at the Willy Wonka chocolate factory. You just opened up your chocolate bar. There's your golden ticket. That's called a 1099K. The reason it's a golden ticket is you now have something to substantiate your gross income. And, you know, with your CPA, you know, our offices are closed depending on what state you're in. We have staff that are out. We're doing what we can. You know, for me, I'm not able to get that much done, partly because I'm having a lot going on with my clients. I'm not able to get tax returns done. And so, you know, what I would recommend to you though is that you don't have time to wait. You definitely don't want to fire who you're working with because you're not gonna be able to find anybody else. That is your CPA. You want to stick with them. But what I would do is, I talked about it earlier, is go to my website, jjthecpahelp.com, and on the page of, let me double check what page I'm going to reference you to, but if you go to the PPP, I have a sample profit and loss that you can use. And for starters, your bank should be able to take that 1099K and then list the expenses that you have, whether it's the rent, the products, your licenses, your dues, those kind of things. And you now have a P&L to arrive at a net that your PPP would be based on. And if you can go one step further, if you would do a Schedule C, you're not doing your whole tax return, but if you can do a Schedule C, that might be able to help. You might even ask your CPA, say, hey, I've got my profit and loss, because you got it from me, where you just put things in a category, nice and neat. And you just say, hey, is there any way that you could at least just prepare the Schedule C for me? I know we can't finish the whole return, and I know it's not due till July 15th. If for some reason they can't, I told a funny story about, you know, if you're telling a customer to cut their bangs, you would probably be committing malpractice, but if your customer was on a raft in the middle of the ocean and the only way for them to get back to shore was to pick up the pair of scissors on that raft and cut their bangs, you would be telling them, listen, just cut your bangs, I'll color it later, we'll do the back and the sides, and I'll style it for you. All I need you to do is cut your bangs, even though it's the most dangerous thing you should ever cut in your life, but you gotta do it to get back to shore. Then you fill out that Schedule C yourself. You just take this right like this, and then get that submitted to the bank ASAP. You have zero time to lose. JJthecPAHelp.com is pure help. There's nowhere to, you enter in no email to get anything on here. It's all just there to help you in every regard.
Focus Remodeling Company, DBA 1 year of business at $51,000 and no EIN. What about self-employed with no employees and no 1099 but have bank receipt with no taxes filed? Contractor for cabinets to go as independent contractor.
Yeah, awesome. Well, and you're out working hard, and all you've got to do is, doesn't matter that you don't have the 1099s, doesn't matter you don't have a tax ID number. Your golden ticket is that Schedule C, like I just said. So basically, you're going to go to my website, you're going to get that profit and loss. You're going to go and get yourself a Schedule C where irs.gov, put in Schedule C as in cat, and fill that puppy out and get it to the bank. Now know this, for all of you that I'm telling you to fill out the Schedule C, you're sending it to the government, so you can't just fill it out any way you want and put false numbers on there, and I'm not saying that you would. But the other thing to note is that whatever you're putting on there, you want to know that you're going to be filing that with the IRS. And all I mean is this: what you hand in, that is now what you are going to pay taxes on. So you can be concerned about the fact that you're preparing something that taxes are going to be on, and I get it. But all that you really should be concerned about here is that, did you report all your income? Yes. Are you reporting expenses directly related to your job? Yes. If you really, and I've never done this, and it'll be the first time in 28 years ever in my life, and I'm not even kidding around. If you have to go and get one of these online tax softwares and go through the questionnaires to put together your Schedule C so that you can print out a Schedule C, then do that, okay? Listen, I know it. If my client's house is on fire and they have to go to an automated system because I'm not able to get their tax returns done, I'm not gonna have my feelings hurt. So if you have to get online tonight and do a TurboTax, okay, doesn't mean you need to file it, meaning you can still have it reviewed by a professional, but you need the Schedule C. You absolutely qualify. It's going to be, though, based on your net. And when you're looking on a Schedule C at irs.gov, look at line 31 because that's the net income.
This one from Edward Cooper. Can landlords get a PPP loan of properties that are in your personal name?
Yeah, so great question. The real estate industry is out on the cold with the PPP because it's based on wages. So whether you own or rent or flipping or any of that stuff, the management companies have a fighting chance for getting PPP because they would have payroll, or if a management company is a sole proprietor, they would have it for their net. If you're selling real estate, you're going to be on Schedule C. And by the way, we're doing a special for the real estate industry. We're doing JJ's open house tomorrow, Saturday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, where we're going to be focusing in on the real estate industry. We already have so many emails on that we will just really be able to just focus in on the real estate. But anyways, my point in saying that is the landlords, it's passive income. It's not counting as self-employment income. But I'm going to tell you this right now. I was talking to a banker yesterday, and they put in a PPP on Schedule E, based on Schedule E, on their rental income. I don't know how it went through. It may be that it's ultimately rejected. It may be that they incorrectly got the money. I don't think that's proper. So all I'm telling you is you don't qualify for it, but maybe check with your bank and see, because the reason that I think that went through on that one particular circumstance after talking with the banker was based on the fact of how many properties they had, where they were reporting that income on their tax return, and in fact, it was not represented on a tax return as traditional Schedule E. It was represented as a business and ultimately subject to self-employment tax because of everything being wrapped into one. It wasn't the best way to do it for tax purposes, okay? But they wrapped everything together into one in terms of property sales, commissions, rent, blah, 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 blah. So right now I know that my fellow CPAs and tax preparers and EAs, right, our heads are going like, what? You can't do that. I'm not saying you can, I'm saying I think that's why it went through, because all of this was on a Schedule C, okay? And that's what then allowed it to go through. But if you're doing a Schedule E, okay, it's not self-employment income, it's not gonna work. What you laughing at? You laughing at the playback?
Yeah, you. Jesse Bird, hypothetically, could a small business owner hire family and friends on payroll to maximize loan forgiveness? Example, restaurant with most employees on unemployment, while not intended use. Is that legal?
Well, here's the deal. Let's just break it down. If you just take normal circumstances, okay, and your employees have left, you're not open, they decide they want to go on unemployment, they feel like they can make more money off unemployment, which may, okay, and now you don't have employees, okay, or you don't have as many employees, but you still have things that need to get done, okay, and you need to hire employees. You are allowed to do, kind of like a rehire replacement, right? What you're not allowed to do is give yourself a raise. What you're not allowed to do is go, well, 3 months ago there were 7 of us, now there's 4, everybody's getting more money. You can't do that, because in essence, whatever you were doing on February 15th is what you need to continue to do. And even though there's not a tracking of what did this employee do to this employee, okay, when you go and sit in front of the bank examiner and they're looking at the employees that are being paid, they are going to review, okay, here's this employee, what were they paid before, what were they paid now? They're only going to forgive the same amount. But to your question, employees have left. I need to replace the employees. So if your employee is somebody that's helping you with your business, you can give them a wage, okay? You can pay somebody a wage to do stuff for your business. They don't have to be related to you. They don't have to be a parent. They don't have to be a friend, okay? If they need to do stuff. So I'm gonna just tell you, I have a client, and one of their front receptionists said, you know what, with all this stuff, I don't wanna be here. I'm gonna go collect unemployment. We're not an essential business, blah, 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 blah. So I'm leaving. I said, well, your daughter's home from college because of the circumstances. You need somebody up front answering the phones, even though no one's coming in. The office is closed, okay? But you need someone answering the phones and doing this. You can hire your daughter, okay? Because she's coming in and she's going to do the work. So you are putting someone in that same position to do that work. So hopefully you hear what I'm saying. Hopefully you hear what I'm telling you.
This is an email from Mike Noyd. I have a number of separate LLC sole member disregarded entities, and they land on my personal 1040 Schedule E. I also have a Schedule C business that does property management. For tax purposes, 1099 are for rents received are in the names of the property management entity. That's the Schedule C. Should I include the rents on Schedule C or file a separate CARES Act application of each disregarded entity that each has its own EIN?
Yeah, nice question. I like it. So we do know with the PPP, you file per EIN. And so when you're now looking at, though, the real estate industry, if it has an EIN, okay, and it's on a Schedule E, well, it's not self-employment income. It doesn't have wages, so it's not going to qualify for PPP. If you have an EIN and it's going on Schedule C, then you're in a position where you're going to file under the EIN, but on the activity that's on your Schedule C, which is on your individual tax return, and your PPP will be based on your net income. If you're paying wages to others, that would be included in the calculation in addition to your net income. Now, If you're indicating, you know, where do I report the income, what the bank examiner is going to do is look at how have you been doing it. So if you've been reporting all of the rent income on Schedule C in the past, then what are the expenses that you've been taking in the past? And if you follow suit and you do what you've customarily done, then you would be fine. But if you have been reporting everything on Schedule E related to the rent income and the management fee aspect on Schedule C, I don't see at all how you would be able to shift over. Makes sense, and it's a good question, but remember the bank examiner at the end is going to be the one.
This is from Todd D. I'm a sole proprietor for 2 of my businesses, but I'm also an independent contractor for another business. Do I put all of this income on one application, or do I have to fill out 2 separate applications for PPP?
They're an independent contractor and a sole proprietor?
Sole proprietor for 2 businesses, but also an independent for another.
Okay. So the way that the SBA is laid out for you on this is that it's all going to be under your social. So you would combine all of that activity to arrive at your monthly payroll cost. So if you have an independent contractor, you get 1099s, no expenses. So you take that, and then you would take the net income from your other businesses, right? So now you'd have the net income from 2 businesses. On the independent contractor, the only reason you're just taking the 1099s is that there's no expenses. Adding those 3 numbers together, divide it by 12 times 2.5, that's going to be the amount. Make sure you are including health insurance and your employer match on that. But the short answer to that one is that if it's all under your social, then you just do 1 PPP. Great question. And then these right here, this is for the emails.
Yeah, I'm trying to go through them too.
Yeah. So what we want to do is, for the ones that are live, if it's hair, nails, Uber, Lyft, we're going to these. If not, we're going to the emails. And then we can come back to those that you followed.
Yeah, I just won't be able to go back up.
Understood, but we need to rapid fire the emails because everybody that I sent an email today, we can't get off until I answer their question.
James E. Step, I saw your video on the break even. If the Schedule C net income is $20,000, you were recommended to go with EIDL. The question is, will the $10,000 you get from the EIDL be forgivable or grant money? I was under the understanding that the EIDL was not forgivable, so why not go with the PPP where it will be forgiven if it is used for qualified expenses?
Yeah, excellent question. And at the time, what they're talking about there is I do have a video that's called Break Even, and it's basically going, so do you get PPP or do you get EIDL? The first thing to know is that if you're getting both, you get PPP first. When you exhaust those funds, then you go and get the EIDL. The second thing to note is that when we were looking at the break even, what we knew was you would get 10 grand from the EIDL, which was at the SBA.gov direct website. You'd get 10K. If you qualified, you got 10K. Then we found out last Tuesday, which would have been the 7th of April, from the Massachusetts bulletin from the SBA, is that they were basing the SBA on $1,000, okay? So, or $1,000 per employee. So this break-even analysis, all of a sudden, it's like, well, does it apply or not? Because no one has been able to tell us. Now, there's been a few that have gotten $3 grand or $3,800 or something, a few of them. But then the Senate has, the U.S. senators have demanded of the SBA to stop making a different interpretation of what they're supposed to pay out on the EIDL, which should be 10 grand. And that's a long way of saying that I don't know at this point in the last 3 days, is the EIDL going to kick out 10K? So where I'm at now is, given that the EIDL has been unresponsive, the SBA, completely unresponsive, and I'm not even saying it, I'm not complaining about it, I'm just factually saying the SBA has not been responsive, then we have to put ourselves in a situation to say, well, do we wait for the EIDL, or should we go ahead and put in the PPP? So here's the deal. If you've got 20,000 net on your PPP for those purposes, get in and get yourself a PPP, okay? If you've already gone in with the EIDL based on where we are April 11th, okay? If the money shows up, then don't spend it till you've exhausted your PPP. But here's what the government has put the small business owner into, a corner. And the corner is this: do I go PPP or EIDL? Because the only reason to go EIDL is if your PPP is less than $48,000, but that's assuming you're gonna get 10 grand from the EIDL. So what I'm feeling like we might need to be looking at is get into a bank, get that PPP in there. Let's see what news comes out on Monday or Tuesday related to this, because I do know also this. People yesterday, Friday on the 10th, were saying, boom, I got my 10,000 on my EIDL. And based on what they were describing, these aren't people I know, it was just comments or posts, they didn't qualify for 10 grand, meaning they didn't have 10 employees, but they still got the 10 grand. So we are in a quandary on this. And so all I can say is if you're trying to make a decision right day on the 11th, and unless we get new information on the 13th, get the PPP in, because we don't know where we stand on the EIDL. And on the PPP of 20 grand, okay, you get that money, you use it, you put in for the EIDL, and then you put in for the federal unemployment. All right, hey, if you don't mind, we are at 428. We'd love it if you take a minute. If you're submitting a question, we just ask that you do subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. I'm not doing this for these purposes, but I am just gonna let you know I got a book. It's called JJ the CPA Here. I like this. Boom, JJ the CPA Here. And it is at Amazon.com. And this book is basically the last 27 years of experience. And it's the top 60 questions from clients. Don't get scared that it's thick. You may not be able to see it because of this lighting. Okay, but it is nice and easy to read. Okay, I wanted it so even people that have to wear these could still read it. But basically, it is not a ton about taxes. I cover things about banking and insurance and business startup and good things to that effect. I do want you to check out my good friend on Instagram, CPA JMac, CPA JMAC. He is quite the CPA. He's a good friend of mine. I do want you to go to two other YouTube channels when you're not watching mine. One is Andrew Neary, and the other is Seth Denson. Why? Because Andrew is a business coach, which a lot of us are going to need coming out of this, and Seth is in the healthcare industry. And so as we're dealing with the COVID-19 aspect, he is bringing doctors into his show on YouTube channel. I want you to also find Russell McDonald. He's everywhere, but Russell McDonald on LinkedIn for our friends here that are from LinkedIn. Russell McDonald, he is in the real estate mortgage business out of California. He's always got awesome information on all of his posts. And what's our next question?
Kenda, my question last night was about ERTC and when you must consider gross receipts down. If you are 10 days into April and your receipts are 67% down, can you go ahead and file ERTC or do you have to wait?
So when you look, 7,200 is an advance request. So if you're anticipating that the sales will continue to be down, and thanks for your question, because one of the things that I think you asked, I had answered by looking, which is it is taking the quarter as a whole and comparing it to the prior quarter, not the month, but the quarter. So I know we're early into it, but if the sales are down that far, then you can go ahead and do an advance credit. The one thing to note here is that the IRS did indicate that if you adjust your deposits or you take a credit, and then later that's not the case, there wouldn't be penalties. Now they didn't say this, but you know as well as I do, typically when they talk about that in any other circles, it's as soon as you know the numbers are not going to be that, then they need to pay that back into the next payroll deposit. I think you would be fine, because I think really what it's coming down to on this employee retention credit is that you're looking at the quarter. Okay, if you think you're going to get a credit, you put in the 7,200, or if you think you're going to get the credit, you reduce down what you pay But if you later realize you're not doing that, then you have to pay more, you have to pay back. But it's all kind of incorporated into the quarter so that then when that 941 is filed, in essence, it all needs to have caught up with itself. And my understanding, because I think it was another one of your questions, is will there be penalties related to that? And I'm going to say no, because of the way that the language is structured when you're looking at taking the advance. So if you're taking an advance and you feel like that it's deserved, that's what it's there for. What I would appreciate, Kenda, right?
Kenda.
Because it's not Kendra.
Not Kendra.
It's Kenda.
It's not.
Kenda, I would like for you to do me a favor because I'm researching this tonight. And the email is jj@jjthecpahelp.com, okay, which might have been different from what you emailed, but that's the email we're using. So, any chance, Kenda, you are on right now?
Yes, Kenda is on right now.
So, if do me a favor, okay, I'm being dead serious when I say this. Don't tell me your answer on the show, okay? I want you to email it so that we can go back and forth. It will not be helpful if you post your answer, and you'll understand when we get to tomorrow's show, but it would not be helpful for you to tell me your opinion on the show. But if you will look at, and I know you can go and find it as well, but if you go to the act itself, and you look at in section of the CARES Act, if you go to section 2301, okay, this is subtitle C. It's the employee retention credit for employers subject to closure due to COVID-19. Okay, and I'm not going to even read it to you, if you don't mind, because I did a little research on what you were saying. Help me with a little research on this. I'd like to get your opinion on this. But if you were to look at, in that section, number J as in Joshua, J as in JJ, read that one. Let me know your thoughts. And I will tell you this, I'm not a big advocate, and I know you aren't as either, right? Because I know the way you're approaching, the way you're taking care of your clients and everything. You can't just read one sentence, and I'm not talking to Kenda now, I'm talking to everybody else. When you're reading the law, you can't just read one sentence and go, oh, there it is, okay? Because I'm telling you, like, everybody was losing their minds on April 3rd, like heads exploding because the SBA came out and said, payroll costs don't include taxes under chapters 21, 22, and 24. And everybody's heads just blew apart, and everybody was convinced over the weekend that there was no way that when the employer went to go get forgiveness, that the taxes that were withheld would be a forgivable payroll expense. And I'm sitting here going, how can that even be? That's not the case. I spent a tremendous amount of time. I shot a video that went to a bank president and a bank chairman because they were convinced that none of what was going to be loaned out would be forgiven to the extent of what was withheld. Here, you don't even have to follow me on that. Here's what I want you to follow me on. And I don't mean you, Kenda, because you already get what I'm saying. You can't just read one sentence and then draw all your conclusions from it, because when that memo came out by the SBA on the 3rd, all it was doing was defining payroll costs. It was defining what is not payroll costs. But when you're reading a book, you're in a science book, you don't just read the index and read the glossary and read the definition and then go, hey, I know science, okay? You have to go, okay, now I understand all the terminology. I understand this. I understand what they mean by that. I understand what this means. I understand the definition of this. Now I'm going to actually read the law. I'm going to read the law of physics. I'm going to read this and then see how all of that applies, okay? So when I read on this employee retention credit, and if Kenda, you're still with us, I appreciate it. Okay, and this is why I really would prefer we talk about it offline. But when I'm on the IRS website, okay, what I'm reading is in one area, okay, it says if you take the credit, if you take the loan, you don't get the credit. Okay, whatever, right? I equate that to if someone said, well, there's a stop sign there and they're stopped forever. They said, well, I can't go forward because the stop sign just says stop, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? We talked about that before. But when you look at other aspects of it, it's saying, okay, if you have fewer than 100 employees, okay, whether your employees were working or not, you get this credit for employee retention credit. You get it, right? If you just read it for what it says, working or not, you get the credit. Okay? But then you go somewhere else on the FAQs and it talks about, well, if it's over 100 employees, they have to not be providing services. You look elsewhere, if you look in the law, and then if you look at any kind of, from the AICPA, it's if they're not at the office and you paid them, you get the credit. And if it's 100 or fewer, even if they were working at home, you still get the credit. I don't have an interpretation here that if everybody's just still working and they're coming to the office, are you still getting a credit? It doesn't seem like you are to me. It doesn't seem logical to me that if I get a PPP loan, I never can get the ERC ever. It's a true either or. You read J and you go, well, what is this really saying? So we can't just read a sentence, but this is my project for myself tonight to figure this all the way out, to really see, is it an either or? And part of this is we're talking like, what, 72 hours at this point, maybe 100 hours ago, the IRS came out and said, hey, guess what? We're gonna let you go all the way back to March 13th. We're gonna let you go back to March 13th, and if you had that, you can go back and, oh, hey, by the way, here's a Form 7200. 7200 came out a week ago, but they came out with this March 13th, 100 hours ago, and so we're trying to figure these out. So I haven't filed any 7200s on my clients. We've been trying to gather up the information. We want to make sure we're doing everything properly. But what we do need to figure out is it an either or, number one? Number two, I think it's an either or, but when you're using PPP money, meaning when you look at the rules of what payroll costs are, it does specifically reference the coronavirus tax credits, and it indicates that if you're using PPP money, any credits that you get are going to offset, reduce, not be included in your payroll costs. And that's where that whole thing came in with chapter 21, 22, and 24, okay? Because those credits offset that. I feel like it makes sense that we're in the same position. If we're using PPP money, we cannot use an ERC. But are we saying if you get PPP money, you never, ever, 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 no matter what, under any circumstances, period, the end, you will not be able to get the ERC? Doesn't seem logical to me. What seems logical is if I'm using PPP money, I can't use that money for those wages for any credits, including the ERC. Anyways, thanks, Kenda, and hopefully maybe we will be able to just, during the work week, we might even be able to just talk about this, but if not, we can email. Appreciate your help. What's next?
Brad,
Go ahead.
Bradley Rorick, the CPA from Nebraska.
All right.
Partners K1 ordinary income and guaranteed payments, part 3, boxes 1 and 4. Can you talk about the subject line? How and when do partners in a partnership apply? Do they submit the same PPP borrow application form attached, completing the fields, average monthly payroll times 2.5, and submit this to their SBA approved bank?
Great question. So what our great fellow CPA friend in Nebraska, does it say what part in his address there?
It does not. It just-
Okay. Well, anyways,
It's the Williams Group.
I think I'm familiar with the Williams Group, only to say this, that I went to school for a year in York, Nebraska. I don't know if they're listening, but I went to school at York, Nebraska for a year. Go Cornhuskers, Big Red. My son may be playing baseball there, but here's the thing. So if we're looking at a Schedule K1, okay? If we're looking at Schedule K1, and I'm gonna stand now for a little bit, so let me adjust the camera if I can.
We are pretty much, we're at questions that are coming in at like 11 o'clock this morning, so we've answered all of them.
Oh, we went through all the emails?
Mm-hmm.
We did?
Yep.
Are you sure?
Yes, besides real estate that we're saving for tomorrow.
I know.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Amanda's hungry.
I am.
She's hungry. It's 6:20. But we got people that have questions. So let's break it down, okay? Let's break it down. I'm looking at a Schedule K1, okay? If you wanted to look at Schedule K1, you can go to irs.gov, you can put in Form 1065, Schedule K1, and you can look at what I'm looking at here. So box 1 is ordinary income, and then box 4A is guaranteed payments for services, and box 4B is guaranteed payments for capital. And then we also have a box 14 that we're going to talk about, that our good friend here, let's see, Jay's Enterprise is saying we didn't catch his email, so that's.
Well, I didn't say we've done them all.
You haven't said we've done them all, okay.
Yeah.
Jay's, we got you.
And Dusty Silva, I see you just asked, and it looks like JJ actually replied to your email, so you need to check your email because he did a reply on it today.
Oh, well, I just replied saying I was going to address their questions on the email. Amanda's frustrated. Hand me the phone.
I
Hand
get
me
it.
the phone. Okay.
I thought if it had a reply.
No, if it has a reply, I said we're going to address it in the show. Yeah, my fault.
Nope.
All right.
I understand now.
You understand now?
I didn't know that.
You didn't catch
so-
that. That's why I was like, I don't think we've hit them all, because if I replied, I was simply saying we're going to address it in the show. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to hit the emails. If I replied to you today, we're now hitting all of those emails. But for our CPA in Nebraska, box 1, ordinary business income. So if that is also box 14, my feeling is, and the way that I've seen the banks do it, is that then is down at the individual level, and that would obviously be part of SE, and then that individual would be, because of self-employment earnings, getting the PPP based on that. Then, when you're talking about 4A, guaranteed payments for services, and if you've been practicing a while like I have, you know, there used to not be an A and B that I recall, was just guaranteed payments. But if you have guaranteed payments for services, what I'm seeing the banks doing, because we have no direction otherwise, is that the banks are including that in the payroll at the partnership level. Now, if that partnership has no other employees, and of course, you know, we're going to have multiple owners that are partners, I guess it'd be interesting to see if the bank would actually you know, do PPP with no employees, but only guaranteed payments to multiple members, if you will, or multiple partners. My gut on it is, it makes sense that 4A would be included at the entity level, but it would also make sense if the bank said, listen, the SBA says you need to do it at the individual level. So this is definitely where we don't have guidance on that. But you know as well as I do, guaranteed payments on 4A for services is deducted to arrive at box 1, right? And then when we're talking about 4B, guaranteed payments for capital, well, you know as well as I do, being versed in the specifics of what we're dealing with, you know, this is like a return of capital, so it's like preferred interest. And so this is a great question, because when I'm looking at A and B, I feel like A would be the only one included up at the entity level. But if you're including it all down at the individual level, it seems as though A and B would potentially both be included if they were included in the SC. If you are not including 4B in the self-employment income at the individual level, then I don't see how it would be included in the PPP at the individual level. So in some ways, it's kind of like what I've said before. I want to say it's up to the bank, which is not the best answer, right? But then even before that, but how has it been reported? Meaning, have you been including 4A and 4B down as self-employment income? And is that then something the bank will take at the individual level? If it's up at the entity level, I think that only the bank's going to include the services. I think the right answer, so if I'm the judge, jury, and executioner on this, I think the right answer would be 4A guaranteed payments would be up at the partnership level, and then box 14 would be down at the individual level, and box 4B would not be included in any or either calculation, because in essence, it's a return of capital, just like it says, or even if it's not a return of capital, it's a guarantee, but it's because they must have put capital into that. So I'd love to know your thoughts back on that, since we don't have any precedent. So those are my thoughts on that one. Hey, let me, do you mind if I look at the emails real quick?
Well, I mean, we're gonna have to go backwards because
Yeah, sorry, Amanda and I were not on the same page. Okay, so we're here, right?
I honestly have no idea. That's what I was trying to find. I was going to answer Dusty Silva's email since he commented and said you didn't answer my email.
Okay. So we're gonna go to Dusty, and then we're gonna go to Jay's, and then we'll hit down. So Dusty, all right. Now we're on the same page.
I am a sole member LLC with employees and filed a Schedule C on my personal tax return. When I submitted my PPP application last week, I submitted an application and selected LLC as the business type and listed my LLC and business tax ID on the application. I listed myself as a member with 100% ownership. My bank has said my net income does not count, and they said that I am not a sole proprietor if I select LLC on the application. Can you clarify how to properly submit an application for sole member LLC with employees and filing a Schedule C on a personal tax return? I mean, you've said in a previous video to select sole proprietor on the application rather than LLC. After selecting sole proprietor rather than LLC, what is entered into the business name and the business TIN, EIN, SSN, LLC business name, and LLC tax ID, or do I list my name and social security number?
Yeah, so great question on all that. I think that the reason they're must be wanting the sole proprietorship, because quite frankly, I think it could be answered either way. So it must be how it's getting entered into the SBA. So I appreciate the question, because now we're getting down to nitty gritty. So these kind of questions help us know what's the nitty gritty. So I think sole proprietor is the right answer from the standpoint of you are reporting on Schedule C. I think it must be either the SBA or the bank is interpreting LLC as you filing a separate entity. But here's the thing, when you're looking at the application, which I'm going to pull a copy up here real quick, we see here we have sole proprietor, partnership, C Corp, S Corp, LLC, independent contractor, eligible self-employed individual, 501c3, 501c19, tribal business, and other, okay? So the thing is that an LLC, right, all my fellow CPA, EA, and tax preparer friends on here, we all know, an LLC is taxed as anything. Any of those things can be an LLC. You can have an LLC, like you're saying, disregarded entity, otherwise known as a sole member LLC. So here's what it comes down to is there must just be a fallacy. All those categories, if you knew, they came out with that all on Friday the 3rd, hours before they opened. So they had 3 versions of the app. This was in the 3rd version. So the answer to your question though is, I would go ahead and do what they had said to mark it as sole proprietor, but I would continue to use the business name, okay, and put the business tax ID number. You're gonna list yourself down there, of course, as the owner, 100%, like you did with your social. If they come back and they say, well, you have to do it as your social because you're on a sole proprietorship, that's okay, because your Schedule C does indicate both numbers on it. If you look at a Schedule C, your social's on there, and then also your tax ID number, and at that point, it's just like, bank, tell me what you want me to do, because let's get it over with. But I think the right answer would have been LLC with your ID number and your business name. The bank telling you otherwise, I still then think it's business name, business ID number, and then just mark that puppy sole proprietor. And it must be they are equating sole proprietor to Schedule C. And it does say that at the top of Schedule C. It says sole proprietor.
Sung Chang. I have a company in California. I've applied PPP loan 4620 to Bank of Hope. I received an email from the bank saying that we can't take application for this PPP loan if the company is owned by a foreign country. I am doing this business as an S Corp for 13 years. Is there any regulations that applicant has to be an approved green card holder to apply for a PPP loan? I am not a green card holder. I have an E2 visa holder.
Yeah, so if you look, great question. And then let's do Jay's Enterprise next. Yeah, if you look, there is a provision in here, and I don't think that you meet the qualification because where does it say it? I'm looking on the application where it indicates as such, and I think, yeah. Let's see, is the United States the principal place of residence for all employees of the applicant, including the applicant's payroll calculation above? And so obviously it's the principal place of residence for all the employees. It'd be the principal place of residence for you. And then, let's see, you might look, it might be that I need to give you a little bit of homework. And the homework that I think you would want to look at is, if you go to my website, jjthecpahelp.com, and you go to the page that is the PPP page, we have some SBA guidance, and it says SBA guidance on 4.3. And, you know, this is something that I believe was addressed. Am I eligible? So now I'm looking at the document, and it says, could I be ineligible related to, yeah, and you might have to visit with, for lack of a better word, an immigration attorney, which sounds like the worst thing ever to be doing right now, and I'm sure that they're busy, but the only other thing I could recommend while I'm looking for this is to potentially talk with a different bank that might be able to give a different take, where they're able to maybe better understand. I hate to say it, you probably have come across it. There might just be a bank just either doesn't understand what it is that you are. I mean, the fact that you've been here 13 years and you're whatever, we moved away from your email, but whatever it is that you have, would you say E2? Does that sound familiar?
You mean E2 visa?
I would assume if you've been here for 13 years and you're doing business here, that you would be able to do that. So I would say that I'm not seeing it right off the bat, my friend. But what I would tell you is go look at the website, okay, and look at these two. There's guidance, and then there is also let's see. There's guidance, and then I also have the frequently asked questions, and I thought that I had read something in there about that. If not, then go to the actual Tax Act and look in 1102, okay? And you can go to my website and you'll find it, the CARES Act. And I'm sorry I don't have the answer for you, but I think it's a technical one that you need to look at a little closer, but I'm giving you some areas to go look. So in 1102 of the CARES Act, you will find further detailed in the law who qualifies, and so I would look at that. We got Jay's.
Jay's just sent you two screenshots of what the banks told him.
Okay, let's look here. All right, so we've got, let's see, update. Okay, so he got an update, and he's with a particular bank, a nationwide bank. Payroll filings. Okay, this is what you need to submit. And then, okay, this is what I got from Wells Fargo, did to me when I put in my PP app. Okay, so let's see. Wow, I'm not going to read this, but let's see. Wow, that's completely wrong. Jay, I would keep this, keep the email screenshots. Let's see. I guess I would say, Jay, make sure you applied for the PPP. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to insult your intelligence, but it's impossible to get this response on a PPP. Like, not even legal. This would be basically saying that it turned out you didn't know this, but you were from planet Krypton and you truly are Kal-El and you are Superman, okay? Not possible. This is not legal in any way, shape, or form if this response was related to your PPP application. Not legal in any way, shape, or form. Like someone's going to jail. Like a criminal act has occurred from the standpoint of you can't be turned down in any way, shape, or form, period, the end, unless you don't qualify. And what you sent here has nothing to do with qualifications. What you emailed me here has nothing to do with, you know, did you have a Schedule C? Were you a sole proprietor? Did you have the payroll? Did you have this? Okay? So based on that, all I can say is either get this, and then, you know, when the dust settles, try and find yourself an attorney because they're going to probably have a class action suit against this bank, because if they were turning away people, they're going down, and they should. But the other thing I would do is if you've got the information, right? If you have a sole proprietorship, you have a Schedule C, this is for anybody listening. You have these items, okay? And you go to the bank and they're telling you anything other than the words you don't qualify, okay? Qualify. Write that bank down, would you? And let me know. I'll help find an attorney at some point. No attorney's gonna be able to do anything right now. We're all stuck at home we're all trying to not get the coronavirus. But those banks are going down, okay? So what I would say is nothing you can do about that now, right? Make sure, of course, that you applied for the right thing. You didn't apply for something that they just made it sound like it was something that was PPP, okay? Because you have these banks out there that they're just ran by human beings, and they think they're offering a PPP, and all they're offering is an SBA loan, okay? If you're just wanting an SBA loan, and so I had a client, and they called their bank, and they're like, hey, I'm supposed to get, I want to get that SBA loan, and they sent them all his documents, and I said, I told you, Mark, you don't call it an SBA loan. It's a PPP. So if the person thought you were applying for an SBA loan, okay, you might get a response like that, because an SBA is based on other things and the PPP is based on one thing. Are you in business? Yes. Do you have employees? Yes. Are you a sole proprietor? Yes. Good. Do you have net income? You qualify. Do you have wages? Yes. You qualify.
Ray Farson, if my payroll for PPP was more than $100,000 for each of my 4 employees last year, for my forgiveness amount, do I have to pay 75% of each employee's old salary or 75% of PPP funds spent need on future payroll?
Yeah, so you have to spend at least 75% on payroll, okay? We know that's a qualification. You can spend more than 75% on payroll. You can replace somebody that has left, but you can't give raises, and you can't give raises. My understanding is you can't hire new employees. This isn't to pay for an expansion, so to speak. So you've gotten your wages, right? And so we all know this. If it's 2.5, basically you're taking your wages times the 2.5. So you know I got 8 weeks to pay wages. So in essence, you got your 2 months covered. The other amount is for the utilities and the rent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, here's my thought process, okay? If you need to hire people, okay, you're gonna pay your rent, you're gonna pay your utilities, obviously you're gonna have those expenses. You need to pay those expenses. You're gonna have your loans, you're gonna pay those, okay? But if for whatever reason you're falling short and you're gonna hire people anyways, okay, track those expenses, because what I feel like is, I get that we can look at the law right now, but they've already reinterpreted it 4 times. It probably will become time forgiveness, that if they go, well, you know, you did spend it on payroll, so you know what, you're good, class dismissed. Meaning, not raises, okay, not giving raises. I'm not talking about that at all, but I'm talking about you added additional heads, you brought in additional employees, okay? You weren't doing shenanigans here, right? If all your employees are $12 an hour and you hired 3 more at $12 an hour, right? So if you, and I'm not at all saying you are, I'm talking to just, you know, as we're trying to figure these things out, I know it's human nature to go, okay, well, how do I get it all forgiven, right? Well, here's the nature of the PPP. It's 2 months of your payroll covered. If you got people that have gone, okay, then you're not gonna get forgiven for that amount because you didn't have those payroll to pay. Oh, you replaced them, good job, we'll go ahead and still cover that. But I just look at it as this. I think you're looking at what was your payroll, okay? That's what it's gonna cover your other expenses, if you already are having other payroll because you need to hire people, I bet that ends up being okay at the end. That's just a hunch, but it doesn't mean at all, we'll go hire people just to get it forgiven. Because remember this too, for anybody out there, remember that you can be in a position where you just give the money back, right? So it can be like, okay, well, I mean, I had payroll of 100 grand. I don't have as much payroll. I paid everybody for the 8 weeks. I paid all this other stuff. Here's my change when I come back from the movies. So that's the unforgiven amount. And what's the unforgiven amount? You either just give it back or you then owe it.
All right, Matt's from Luxury Tour Bus Operator, San Francisco, California.
All right, SF.
What incentive is there to bring part-time employees off payroll to pay via PPP when they are making more money off of unemployment benefits? Is there any reason to accept my PPP before June 30th if my business will not have any revenue until then and I won't have any employees to pay until then?
Yeah, you know, it's a great question, and it sounds good to get the PPP because, you know, it's being handed out. The one quandary we have is just what you're talking about there is this. Well, what if I don't have any payroll? What if I'm not open? What if I don't have any revenue? So know this, if you get the PPP and all that comes to fruition, meaning you don't have the employees, right? Well, remember this, if you have those other expenses, you can't just say, well, I could borrow 100 grand, I'm gonna borrow 25 to help me cover my rent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You have to just borrow the 100 to have 25 to cover those other expenses. You may need it because all of a sudden, guess what? Boom, it's back, here we go, let's rock. Here's what I'm telling employers, okay? You may qualify for 150, you don't see it, you're probably not gonna be open for the next 4 weeks. Maybe you just go ahead and take 75 of it. Maybe you take 80. You don't have to take the max. It's just, here's the max you get. It makes sense to get some of it because if things open up, you don't want to be where you can't get back at it. The other aspect is I get that the intention of it is for payroll. Okay, so you get it, now you sit on it. Okay, you don't have any payroll, at the end you have a choice. Write them a check, here we go. No harm, no foul, because there's no interest charged on it. Payments are deferred 6 to 12 months. Right? You just write a check at the end, right? I didn't use it, here you go. But what if you need it? Okay, what if you need it? And you need it. So I think it's better to get it in there. And I understand like, oh, I'm holding on to this money and I'm gonna owe it back. Well, if you don't use it, you just pay it right back. But then you have it in case you need it. So you don't have to look at it as I don't wanna go into debt. If you don't use it, you don't go into debt. But if in the event that you need it for the payroll in that 8-week period, boom, you have it. Not to mention you have expenses, if applicable, that you can cover, which is the health insurance, which a lot of employers are still paying even if their employees are unemployed. The retirement match, well, if you don't have any wages, you don't have that, I get it. But also the rent and the utilities, and then if you have any loans, right? So any loans in that business name, that interest that you're paying in essence will cover. So I don't really see a downside, given that at the end you can just say, here's what I didn't use, so I'm just gonna go ahead and give it back to you, and you then don't have a loan. But in the meantime, those expenses that qualify can get covered the same way I'm talking about granddad gives you 20 bucks to go to the movies. You come back, hey, I went to the movies, I spent 18, here's your change of 2 bucks. It's all even. And then granddad may say, well, if you wanna keep the 2, you can just pay me later.
Roberta, I called my bank, MidFirst Bank in Arizona, and spoke to a personal banker. I wanted to make an appointment to apply for the PPP program. The first question from my bank was, do you have a business account with us? I answered no, just personal account. Then I was asked if I'm a registered licensed business with the state. I am not, I'm just an independent contractor that works for a doctor. I'm not 1099, not W-2. It looks as though I won't get salary come May because most of his business is anesthesia and electric surgeries have stopped. I pay all my expenses, including my own health insurance. Thank you so much for any help or info you can provide.
And so this is what are they classified as? You said they don't get a 1099, they don't get W-2?
She didn't say anything.
Okay. This is on the, here, so I can read along. Will you, here, log me in to the email on that one too. All right, let me just see the very beginning. Well, so with Roberta, yeah, a lot of people are in your circumstances. Sorry about that. And if we look, it says, I called my bank. Kenda, just so you know, I probably won't be able to find your comment. There's too many. I probably won't be able to go back and somehow find that. So whatever you sent, if you don't mind emailing it to me, because I probably just will not be able to find it. So I don't want your good, hard work to be lost. Let's see, so with Roberta, so if you filing a Schedule C, then you should qualify. I know the bank's asking if you have a business account. I think that there's gonna be banks that are gonna get a whooping, and they should. I mean, slapped up whooping, okay? Because there's nothing at all anywhere in the Act, code, law that requires you to have a business account. And in fact, you can't have a business account by law if you don't have a separate tax ID number. The entire definition of an independent contractor, self-employed, typically sole proprietor, is that they don't have a separate business, they don't have a separate ID number, therefore they cannot have a business account. Period. The end. That's the way it's been since the beginning of banking law. You can't have a business account because a business account is defined as an EIN. Separate business has a business account because a business account can have a personal account. So these banks, I really hope that everybody that they could find that they said that to, they gotta write them a check for 10 grand. So at the end of the day, you're gonna need to go to a different bank, because if you have a Schedule C, you qualify regardless if you have a business account.
This is from
And
Lynn.
switch. Okay,
I have a small business, S Corp, been in business 6 months, no employees, didn't pay myself. Can I apply for a loan to use towards rent and utilities? If yes, how will I calculate my loan amount?
all right. I'm gonna get caught up with you here.
I'm just going through the sent folders. That's the only way we're gonna be able to do this. So whoever you replied to,
Got it. Oh, okay,
because
great.
there's too many emails in there, so.
Okay, cool. And so where are you at? Because I want to be on the same page here with you. I'm in the sent. And who was it to?
LynnAngo4@gmail.
Okay, this one here, Lynn Nango. Okay. All right.
You'll have to click.
I have to click that.
No. She must have sent another one.
So I'll just take a minute if you don't mind. We are, what, 162 minutes in? So we're going on, what, about 3 hours? So,
Yeah, she must have sent like a bunch of emails or something.
okay. Well, if you haven't subscribed, we'd love it if you would. I would appreciate that. I'll just read the one that you gave me. And then we're gonna wrap up here in about 10 minutes. And so for those that we had the miscommunication on, we'll go live tomorrow and we will be specific. I apologize, we were not on the same.
It's completely my fault.
We weren't on the same page, so I had emailed a group of people and I said, hey, I'm gonna answer your emails when we go live. So we'll try and get to those, and if we don't, then we'll give you a special time that you will 100%, we will only answer those. So this is from Lynn,
Yeah,
and so she sent another one?
yeah, about a different subject.
Okay, so I have a small business, S Corp, been in business for 6 months, no employees, didn't pay myself. Can I apply for the loan to use towards rent and utilities? And because you're an S Corp, you cannot. You don't have any wages, so you don't qualify. And even though you have rent and utilities, you have to have payroll to get the money to then have to pay towards the rent and utilities. My husband is a dentist and is in the same situation. He applied for a PPP under the EIN and has no employees, so he sent the P&L and uses that to calculate. Did he do that? Yes, and so with the dentist, if he's got an EIN, if he's an S corp, he's going to be in the same circumstances as you. If he's a partnership, he would then have to have another partner. So if he's a sole proprietor, it'd be the net. So on the second one, you just said it was an LLC. So LLC can be taxed as a sole proprietorship, a partnership, an S corp, and a C corp. So I think it'll just depend on that situation. But what it'll come down to is the S corp, we're just left out in the dark on that. Okay, because unless we've paid ourselves wages or have wages, there's not going to be anything else that qualifies.
You just click this back button, and then you'll be able to follow with me.
Okay.
Cynthia Walker, thank you for, will you create a video on how to use QuickBooks to account for spending money? You talked about creating a liability company. You also mentioned keeping track at the bottom under other to keep track of expenses for management purposes, such as paying rent with these funds. I'm a sole proprietor with a business account.
So Cynthia, so anybody, I'm gonna be putting together videos on how to account for this, talking more about the forgiveness. For those of you who are getting the money right now, for Cynthia, it's like, hey, can you tell me what we need to do? The best course of action is on your QuickBooks when that money arrives. The account that you would select would be a new one, which would be called PPP liability. That'd just be a good recommendation. And it's a liability account. What type is it? Other current liability. And then as you spend money, instead of putting that to the account such as rent expense, you would put that to the PPP liability, and it would reduce down the liability as you move along. And we will do that one. So who's next?
Daniel Trenza. I am an audio engineer, have a sole proprietor company, a full-time and part-time job, all doing audio engineering. So I have 2 W-2 jobs and a Schedule C for freelance 1099 staff. So my monthly income consists of salaries from W-2 and invoices from 1099s. I applied for EIDL on 4/3/20 and PPP on 4/9/20. The majority of my income is from W-2, and since I haven't been furloughed from both of those jobs, I will need to apply for state unemployment with federal 600 bonus hopefully tacked on. When my PPP and my EID comes through, can I accept those even though I will be receiving unemployment benefits, or do I have to wait until those benefits will run out before I can use the PPP or EIDL money for my payroll?
Perfect. And all I can do is say stuff live. I can come whisper it to you if you'd like. But so I'm not saying this, but we probably should just read people's first names. I mean, it comes through as their. I'm just now realizing I did it.
Oh.
All I'm saying is people are sending us emails. They're giving us a lot of details. We don't probably even pronounce her name correctly.
Okay.
But we'll try and just go with first names on this. Probably the person would know that we're talking about them based on the details. But so what we're talking about here is probably common. We have somebody, that they have a job, they have a side business, right? They have multiple things. Well, if they're getting federal unemployment benefits, if you are related to your job, then that's to replace that income. We have to look at this is that you now have done a great job of having multiple streams of income. So when you have multiple streams of income, you have to look at, well, if this federal unemployment is replacing that wage, then I can get that. If this PPP is replacing this income from this sole proprietorship, then I can get that. And it would be okay to do both at the same time because they are for separate purposes. If you were getting federal unemployment and PPP related to your sole proprietorship, that is where you need to run down the line, which is PPP, then EIDL, then the federal unemployment. And it is possible to get federal unemployment for your sole proprietorship and to get federal unemployment related to your job. I'm sure that there might run into some questions there in terms of why are you applying for both, but it's to know this. You're there to replace the income from the source that it's coming to. So if that source is gone, then you're taking advantage of whichever source you can from the government to replace it.
Hey, this one's from Austin. I don't know if my calculations are incorrect or if the bank guidance is wrong, but here it is. The business was started in April 2019 as an LLC. Our first payroll was ran May 31st, 2019. Our last payroll for the year was December 22nd, 2019. The bank calculated our loan as the average between those 2 dates, which happens to be 206 days or 6.7 months. They took our gross income and divided it by the number of months we actually paid in payroll in 2019. It's great for us because our loan amount was much larger and more accurately represented our payroll costs, but I don't believe this is how the law was intended. Am I wrong or are they wrong?
Well, Austin, very good, conscientious thought process there. The bank did it correctly because actually, when you read the law, what it specifically states is a couple of scenarios where basically what it takes into account is that if you have less than 12 months of payroll, then you're going to take the time period that you did have payroll and divide that by the number of months that you did have payroll. So typically what you've seen in the law is that if you came into business in 2020, then you would take the payroll that you had just in 2020 divided by that period of time. If you are in a situation where you are looking back 12 months, but you only have 10 months of payroll, then you take that divided by 10. So I believe that they did it right in the calculation. The one thing I'll just mention to you is that you do qualify, your business would qualify, okay, in the sense that you had the payroll. But I will say this, if, in reading the example, if the last payroll was on December 22nd, 19, remember that one of the biggest qualifications in getting the PPP is that you are indicating that you are going to pay payroll, future payroll. So if I were to look at the application and the question that we would need to look at here is, let's see, so we have to certify the funds will be used to retain workers and maintain payroll or make mortgage payments, lease payments, and utility payments as specified. I understand that if the funds are knowingly used for unauthorized purposes, the government may hold me legally liable, such as for charges of fraud. Now, don't get me wrong, it says I will use this for payroll or make mortgage, interest, lease, and utility payments, right? So you can get the money, right? It is there. I qualify for it. How do I qualify? It's based on wages. Okay, I'll take my wages. I qualified. I get it. Okay, I got the money. I don't have payroll, but I'm going to pay it on these other costs. All I'm saying is that I would just say 100%. Whatever funds you get, 75% of it, if you don't have payroll coming back, and you know it, and if you're saying you have payroll that ended in December of 19, technically you qualify for this, and yes, you can use 25% of it for these other expenses, but you should plan on that other 75% of just, it's obviously not going to get forgiven if you're on payroll, but it's a payback. Interesting that the bank went through the effort of figuring all that out, didn't pick up on the fact that you're not going to have future payroll that they might have questioned with you, meaning not in a negative way or anybody did anything wrong, but to kind of question, it's like, okay, but this is a paycheck protection. Do you have any payroll? Are you expecting any payroll? Because even though you're supposed to get this based on payroll, you are supposed to use it for payroll. So the calculation's correct.
Steve, as the owner of my LLC, can I W-9 myself and use that for payroll amount in my PPP application?
No, because you had to have already done it. So if you've already done it, then I think that you can, if that's what you've been doing. But 1099s were due January 31st. So if you've already done that, then I would think it would all qualify. Thank you, Brian.
Man, I own rental properties, multi-family for the last 15 years. Always showed net income. I have a business account with U.S. banks and PNC. I contacted U.S. Bank in regards to the stimulus funds. I was told since I filed under Schedule E, I don't qualify. Most of my tenants have not paid their rents, and I truly need to find funds to cover my overhead and mortgages. The other businesses I have is cattle farm, and I showed no net income the last 2 years due to cattle prices plummeting. What are my options? I appreciate your time.
Well, man, yeah, these are tough times, and I understand. And with the industry of not only cattle, but on real estate, you know, we're not probably looking at a lot of net income, if any, like you talked about. So really what you're looking at is EIDL. With the EIDL, you would be able to go and get one for the cattle business, and then also related to the rental business. If you have separate ID numbers, you would get them by ID number. So if you have multiple rental properties and multiple entities with multiple EINs, I believe that you can go and apply in each one of those EINs. If it's all in your social security number, it's probably going to be limited, okay, from the standpoint of your social security number is the ID number, and they're going to know, well, how many businesses do you have, because you only really appear to have one based on your social security number. All right. Someone's signing off. It was great to have you on. I appreciate it. And then no, banks cannot charge fees. I just caught that one out of the corner of my eye.
Matt, if payroll is processed bi-weekly, is it possible that 5 payrolls could be calculated as payroll costs during the 8-week period, depending on the timing of the disbursement of the loan? The act contemplates that payroll costs must be incurred and paid during the 8 weeks, but I'm unclear on how to calculate the cost to be calculated for forgiveness at the end.
Yeah, Matt, you know, great question, and I appreciate, you know, you included here the calendar and some pictures there. And as it relates to that, you are correct that it says incurred and paid. And so I know I've already been talking with banks that we really want to zero in on this, because, you know, with the way that it's written now, if you owe someone payroll but you don't pay them in the 8 weeks, you're not going to get it forgiven. Well, we all know that typically with payroll, right? If payroll period ends on the 56th day, typically payroll's the next day or 2 days after that. So incurred and paid, the way we're interpreting it now can only be that if you're paying them through the 56th day, then you better pay them a check before the 56th day as well. I do think there'll be some leniency on this. You know what we might do here is I'm sorry to interrupt myself, but it was at, what do you think, 160 that we started doing these emails? 160 minutes?
Probably, yeah. I don't honestly know.
Well, we're at 176 minutes, so it was probably within the last 15 minutes, probably?
Yeah.
Okay, so we can email them to let them know if you didn't catch it, go to the 160 minute mark, and it's after that. So Matt, stay tuned on that one. I'm definitely gonna have some videos coming out. That one of the reasons I haven't come out with really any videos on the forgiveness is I think it's gonna change quite a bit. So stay tuned on that, but you know, when you're looking at that, I think it's basically incurred and paid as in literal, but we don't like to see things as literal, so that's why I think that we'll see further clarification on that.
Dora, I'm a solo proprietor with 1 employee. I had 3 employees by December 19, but the other 2 quit, so I'm using 1 employee that I have actually. For loan calculation, I used Schedule C 2018 because I haven't filed 19. Is that okay? The bank hasn't responded. I am adding the average monthly payroll for my employee. When is time to prove how I spent the loan? How am I going to prove my self-employment, making myself a check?
Yep. So good questions on that. The first thing I would mention is, I mean, you don't have to include all your payroll costs, but it'd probably be less confusing to the bank if you took all of the payroll costs, even though you don't have the same employees. What the bank's going to want to see is 941s and or W-2s, W-3s. And so for you to try and explain that they're here and they're not here, you're just going to end up not getting a loan because the bank's going to not know how to compute anything you just told them. So this is how you do it, okay? You go in and you say, here's my payroll, here's my 941s, here's my W-2s, here's what I qualify for what I pay my employees. It's irrelevant that they're not there. Just hear me out here for a second. Then you take your net Schedule C and you say, hey, here's my net, okay? It can't be based on 18, it's gonna need to be based on 19. So you got 1 of 2 choices. Do a P&L, see if they'll accept that. Do a P&L and a Schedule C and see if they'll accept that. My preference, if I was the banker, is I wanna see a Schedule C. So, see other videos I've done on that. But you're now going, here's the payroll, here's my net, okay, for 19. You're gonna add those together, divided by 12 times 2.5 to say, here's my monthly payroll costs, okay? And then here's 2.5, here's the max loan. Let's say the max loan comes up to 25,000. You can say, I know my max loan is 25 grand, but I just want 20. That's how you need to go about it. You trying to explain and getting somebody to follow you, okay? Everybody's going down a whitewater, they're on a whitewater raft right now in the rapids, okay? All they know is they need a Schedule C from you, and you trying to explain something like, what are you saying? I can't, what? Might as well just not even do it. Give them exactly what they need, follow the formula, period, the end, but then you can just say, I want less. Knowing this, whatever you qualify for, that's what you can get, and if you don't spend it in 8 weeks, you just give it back. So it's kind of 6 1/2 dozen of the other to the bank. The second is we don't know yet about what's going to substantiate self-employeds paying themselves and it back being considered payroll.
Leslie, I have an online wedding accessory business. Can I use the funds from the EIDL loan to purchase items and inventory to help the new products that would have a better chance of selling?
Where are you at? Because I thought I was going with you and I don't see.
I'm on 21 of 39.
Okay, ZRL?
Yeah, question.
Okay. Sorry, you were reading it and I'm trying to figure out where you're at, so I'm just rereading it really quick. Let's see. Yes, okay. So this is the question of what can I use my EIDL for? Whatever you want. Period. You get the EIDL. What if you get the money? It's basically, hey, here's money to go help you with your business, whether it's making loan payments or buying products or any of that kind of good stuff. So whatever it is that you want to use that money for, as long as it's for the business, right? Business expense, then you're good to go. Let's see, on Nancy, I had read through this one. Okay, so let me go ahead and I've already kind of buzzed down to what. So Nancy, and for Nancy, we're at 181 minute mark. Okay, let's see. So if you don't, will you reply to Nancy and just tell her that we answered her question at the 181 minute mark? I have a partnership LLC and subcontract 1099s. But if people are worried about not having the loan forgiven, why can't they just pay their employees each week, even if they're not working? It would be paying for their loyalty until hopefully open in 8 weeks. Absolutely. So if you're getting the PPP money, it is meant for the employees. Now, you know, employees may say, well, I think I'm going to get more on unemployment. And so it's caused there to be kind of some tiffs, so to speak, between employers and employees, unfortunately. Because the employers take it as, well, I mean, I'm getting this money to pay you, and the employee's like, well, I can go get money doing this. So it does cause kind of some issues, but really what this is meant for is the employee doesn't have to go get on unemployment. I know that this unemployment $600 a week add-on is making it more attractive to be unemployed, which is definitely not the intention of the unemployment. I think that people need to be wary. First of all, I yet have actually heard of anybody that's actually receiving the $600 a week federal unemployment. I've heard people say, oh, I'm going to qualify for it, but I don't know of anybody that has. All to say that unemployment is not designed to let you make more than when you were working, which is another way of saying typically unemployment is 70% of whatever it is that you make. But you're absolutely right, Nancy, that we want to be in a position where as the employers, we're just paying the employees. They don't have to go on unemployment. And when an employee goes on unemployment, there's a lot of other things that come into play.
Jump to 16. The rest of them were just thank yous and I want a t-shirt.
Okay, hang on. It did say I have a partnership LLC and subcontract 1099s. I have a K1 with box 14 self-employment. When I receive the PPP loan, do I just write checks to me and my partner each week for 8 weeks, and then it will be forgiven with proof of canceled checks? Nancy, I'm going to say for now, yeah, that'd be the way to go about it. And at least you've got some proof. I'm hoping that they come out with something. But if, in essence, whatever was used to get the loan, if you're using it for those purposes, just as you pointed out, then you're in a position where those things should be forgiven. Now, when you're talking about self-employed, right, then you can probably have a separate bank account. So how do you do that, right? That'll be the real question, is for the self-employed that does not require to have a business account, because they don't have a separate tax ID number for starters, how do they substantiate that? And that's where I kind of have a hunch, potentially with self-employed individuals almost, okay? Are we in a position where we are just going to automatically see it forgiven? It did just see it flash really quick. You can use a W-3 in place of the 941. Okay, and let me see. Okay, if a partnership LLC and no employees and have 5 1099 contractors, can I still apply for the EIDL? Would me and my partner be considered employees, or can I include the 1099? Great question. So we have an LLC here that doesn't have any employees. So they're going to go do the EIDL. Why? Because they don't have any employees. And if they're doing the partnership and they don't have box 14, we talked about that here a second ago, then the only choice would be an EIDL. Okay? Now, what's interesting here, Nancy, of what we've got here is, that I hadn't thought about before, is we have a partnership that can go and get the EIDL under the partnership name. And then we have individual partners that are getting self-employment income. So are they able to get both? The answer should be yes, right? Which means at the individual level, I'm getting a PPP, if that's how the banks will ultimately let this happen, meaning the partnership has no employees. The partnership then cannot apply for PPP, but me individually, I'm getting a K1. Does it have guaranteed payments on it? Yes. Does it have box 14? Yes. So if I have either one of those down at the individual level, we're going to have self-employment income, as you know, right? So we're going to have a Schedule SE that's going to show the self-employment income. So then if we're in a set of circumstances where you're then getting the EIDL up at the partnership level, I think you actually could get both, because you're getting them for two separate reasons. And then to answer your question though, I think with the EIDL, when it says the number of employees, would include the number of owners, okay, but would not include your 1099 people that you're paying, because the SBA has indicated that those that receive the 1099 count themselves. So that'd be my rationale of saying you don't get to include them, because whatever they're applying on, they count themselves, but you at the partnership level would count the other partners. I don't think it would matter if they were passive or active. If you're looking hardcore at rules, which we don't even have, but if I'm looking at other rules, you probably base it on the partners that were 20% or more. There's no basis on that. I'm just trying to give you maybe some logical thinking of mine on, well, how are you coming up with employees when they're not employees? Well, we know it can't be zero. We know that in other circumstances, like as a sole proprietorship, you show one as the employee, which is you. So if you're a partnership getting the EIDL, well, how many employees are there? None. Just the same as a sole proprietor is no employees. So you would show then how many partners, but I think if you got partners and you got 1 million of them and they're all 0.25%, I don't think you can show that. So I think you would have to be showing the partners that were probably 20% or more, or go with a good gut reasoning for all of that that you feel comfortable with. But I do think partnerships, EIDL, the individual in this circumstance would be the PPP. Nancy, thank you so much, and we will have a t-shirt coming for you. Thank you for your wonderful email. It really means a lot to me, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you.
Jamie, I started my business October 22nd, 19. My business is kind of seasonal. I'm a pressure washing, cleaning, and sanitation. I have a business account with a bank, but I only make $475 total for the year so far, but haven't made anything since all of the quarantine. Nobody is wanting anything done right now in my area. I was wondering if I could apply for PPP.
I think what you want to apply for would be the EIDL. because the PPP is not going to yield anything for you. It's based on the net. So I'd go for the EIDL, and then I would go with the unemployment aspect if you're able to qualify for that. Did I hit it all?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Jamie.
Leslie again. Just recently applied at 3 p.m. this afternoon on Chase's website for PPP. I have regular checking accounts since 17. All my business deposits go there through the ACH. I don't have a business account, checking account, and can't apply for PPP.
Well, keep that email, and I'm not kidding around, because there's going to be a really good lawyer, and I hope that I'm going to find that law firm that's going to do this nationwide, and it's going to make $1 bazillion off of Chase, and Chase should pay through the nose, and it should be bloodied. Their nose should be bloodied, and they should absolutely be embarrassed and shamed. Whatever associate, banker at the top is a total goofball, idiot, piece of crap that has made this determination, because they've only made the determination to limit who they're giving these loans to, and they're not allowed to do that. The bank that is accepting this money is then to give it to those that qualify. They don't get to add their new qualifications to what they think they should be able to give money to. Not in any way, shape, or form do you have to have a business account, period, the end, to get PPP money. Chase, I hope you get bloodied on this. I hope that you're embarrassed in front of Congress and Senate. I hope that your stock goes down. I hope that the people that made this decision are ruined. I hope their careers are ruined. I hope their bonuses are not paid. I am so disappointed in you. You should be absolutely ashamed of yourself when you know, because you're in the banking industry, that if you do not have a business account, it does not preclude you from getting the PPP. How do we know this? Because on the application, it says independent contractor, self-employed, sole proprietor. Those qualify. Those businesses, those individuals do not have or are not required to have a separate tax ID number, period, the end. You cannot have a business account unless you have a separate tax ID number. I hope there's an attorney listening right now that's getting ready to be sailing on a fat yacht 24 months from now, because they're putting together the class action suit against all of these big banks, and they're going to make some serious bank because they went and made sure that Chase paid for this ridiculous, disgusting, absolutely shameful opinion and action, because there's nowhere that that's required in any way, shape, or form. And in my opinion, you should not be accepting the money if you're then going to take your own decisions on who gets the money and who doesn't. Because let's just be honest, okay? I'm a lily white guy from Oklahoma City, and I know nothing about discrimination, and I'm being sincere when I say that. That is pure discrimination, okay? Where does it end? Where does it stop? Well, I don't like the way that you dress. I don't like your sexual orientation. I don't like the weight that you're carrying on yourself. I don't like the way you smell. I don't think you should be able to qualify because of the color of your skin. I don't like this, and I don't like this, and I don't like that. You can't just put one qualification on there and go, oh, well, because it's related to the financial qualification. There is no financial qualification. It doesn't even require you to have a bank account. Now, can a bank say, well, listen, we're only going to do this with our customers? Yes. Okay. But if you're telling me here, is what I'm understanding, you have a regular checking account, then you qualify. If you're not required to have a business account for the business that you have, how can you have a business account? So, Leslie, please keep the email. You're getting ready to maybe get $10,000 to $100,000, because I hope you're the leader of this class action suit, and I hope the actual individuals that made this decision are shamed and brought to light and absolutely made out for the pricks that they are.
Do you want to, we have like 14 more to go through. Do you want me just to email them back and tell them my apologies? We'll get to their questions first thing on tomorrow's live, or do you want to go?
Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to email those people back, and just so they don't have to go to the end,
Yeah.
And I can just read the questions. You've got other things that you might need to do. So I'm gonna go live at 8 p.m. That's just all there is to it. Central Standard Time, period, the end. Tonight, I'm going back live at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, and we will only answer the questions of the people that I said that I would email or I would reply. So if you'll reply to them and just say, due to some miscommunication, we apologize. We did not get to your question. So I'm sorry for those if you've been hanging on this long. My gosh, my apologies. But we're going to go 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, and we will only answer those, and then we can tell them they can either come live or not. But if they find the one that says live on 4/11, 8 p.m. the edition, they will find the answer to their email in that edition. So gonna take a breather, get something to eat. We're gonna come back at 8, but we're only going to reply to the emails that I replied to today. We've got a ton of emails, so if you haven't heard back from me, I wasn't being able to plan on it. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Focus Remodeling, thank you so much for that. DC, Rex, Edmond and City Rehab, RRR. Yes, RRR, please consider my question at, email me your question. If I told you I was gonna email you back, or if I said I was gonna reply to you, we're gonna do that at 8 o'clock. Thank you, R. Grace, Rex, RRR, please consider at 8. So RRR, so we're on the same page. Do me a favor, I've got like 1,000 emails. Resend me your email if you don't mind. Let's see, Julio, thank you so much. Let's see, banks are not required, I couldn't catch it. Let's see, Juan Garcia, great job, y'all. Thank you so much, Juan, appreciate you. Jessica, thank you. Paint Smith, they melt away on this so quickly. Focus, enjoyment, I appreciate that so much. All right, hey, so we're gonna come back at 8, specifically to answer the questions. Thank you so much, Jimmy, Trent, Gig Economy email. If I did tell you in an email today we were gonna reply, then we will do that at 8. If I hadn't replied to you today, we will get with you tomorrow. So a lot of good questions here. Thank you so much. Freddie, yeah, great to see you. Frederick, yes. I think I have a question of yours to get back to. Thank you so much, everybody. Let's see, Edmund and Angelia. It's kind of small. I got my glasses on. Can't see everybody's name, but thank you so much. I appreciate you tuning in. I look forward to coming back at 8 o'clock to answer those questions. I'd love it if you'd subscribe. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, we are going to have an open house. We're going to focus in on the real estate. We might already just be fully full of questions for that, and we will look forward to kind of covering everything to that. I also plan to reveal what my final conclusion is on the employee retention credit, because I've got to make a decision for my own clients on what we're doing Monday. But I do want to double check my reasoning and thinking on all of that, so I'll have a special video on that. All right, hey, thanks for tuning in. I'd love it if you'd subscribed. And y'all have a great night. If I don't see you back, have a great Easter if you celebrate such a thing. Have a great happy bunny day if you do, and lots of eggs and ham and mustard and deviled eggs and peeps and all that good stuff. So I really appreciate everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk with you here in a little bit if you come on